Hikaru is your average high schooler with terrible social anxiety and no idea what he wants to do with his life. He wakes up early one morning and, after dragging himself out of bed, he heads to the train station and gets on the first train headed to his school. But there's something that has been bothering him for a while now. Last night, while he was riding his bike, he saw a mysterious orange light in the sky and heard a voice calling out to him. So he's trying to figure out what it could have been, but he hasn't found any information yet. As he is scrolling, he notices a pregnant woman standing in front of him, as well as two old ladies silently judging him for not giving his seat up to the pregnant woman. He feels like it'd be the right thing to do, so he gets up and is about to offer the pregnant woman his seat. But then he hears a couple of guys in the background making fun of him for being a goody two-shoes. However, it turns out that he was just being paranoid and the two guys were talking about someone else. He is relieved once he realizes that they aren't talking about him. But while he was standing in place, the man next to him already got up and offered the pregnant woman his seat instead. Now, Hikaru is left awkwardly standing by himself, and he feels so embarrassed about it that he's about to get off the train. But all of a sudden, a couple of his classmates get on and spot him, so he now has to join them. Hikaru's friends begin talking about their future plans, but Hikaru hasn't actually been listening this entire time because he is still preoccupied with what happened last night. His friends ask him about it, so he explains that from what he remembers, he heard a voice late last night. He opened his window to see what was going on and saw that the area around the Kagami building was really bright. He wanted a better look, so he rode his bike up the hill to get a better view. Unknown to him at the time, a huge battle was taking place in the Kagami building, and an orange cube was about to be stolen by a girl with robot arms attached to her hips. She tried to escape through the roof, but as soon as she got up there, she was immediately surrounded by the private police force of the building. They recognized her as a Mecha-Ude user, so they immediately pulled out their weapons in an attempt to neutralize her. But those mechanical arms made her a difficult target to hit. After the police officers failed to stop her, the guards then pulled out specialized weapons and used them to freeze her in place. The boss then comes out and pulls out a mechanical creature of his own. But this one has been experimented on to make it a more efficient tool. The girl's mechanical arms are outraged by what the man did to one of their kind, but the man shows no remorse as he takes the cube back so he can use it in one of his future experiments. The girl refuses to let that happen, so with the help of the arms, Cinnies and Dex, she breaks free from the trap and attacks the weapons developer. In the process of the fight, the girl manages to get the cube from the weapons developer, but because the containment tube was damaged, it ends up getting launched several hundred meters into the air. That was when Hikaru saw an explosion come from the building, and he even took a video of it, but for some reason, nothing out of the ordinary was recorded. He also recalls seeing a glowing cube land somewhere near the building. Once again, none of that showed up on his recording. His friends think he must have just had a really weird dream last night, but out of curiosity, since he apparently heard a voice, they ask what kind of voice it was. Hikaru's embarrassed to say, but he tells them that the voice was asking for help. His friends joke that it may have been a ghost, but Hikaru knows what he heard, and coincidentally, he hears that same voice again. Even though he's supposed to be attending class, he takes off running in an attempt to track the voice down. He ends up approaching the Kagami building, and he's not sure what he's meant to be looking for. But as he's about to enter a roped-off area, he is stopped by a police officer. The officer tells him that he isn't allowed to be back there. Hikaru asks why, so the officer explains that Mr. Kagami made a generous donation to the police station in exchange for a couple of officers helping him with a little situation. But then, the officer gets a message on his radio, telling him that Mr. Kagami needs all the officers to head over to the back room. The officer turns to head for the back, leaving Hikaru near the restricted area. Hikaru was initially going to turn back since he is a law-abiding citizen, but as he's about to leave, he hears the voice again. So, he decides to ignore the "do not cross" tape and goes searching through the abandoned section of the compound. He walks around for a while until he comes across an ominous glowing cube in the middle of the floor. He wonders if this is the thing that was calling out to him. He gets close to it, and sure enough, the cube begins talking, which freaks him out a little. He still reaches out to touch it, resulting in a massive flash of light. The cube flies up into the sky and lands on Hikaru's back, causing another flash of light and drawing a lot of attention. By the time Hikaru opens his eyes, he has a massive arm growing out of his back. The arm is really relieved to have finally been saved. Hikaru hears the voice of someone talking to him, but he can't see anyone, so he starts panicking until the arm gets his attention and tries to calm him down. Seeing a metal arm growing out of his back does nothing to calm Hikaru down, but the arm begins to thank him because it is genuinely grateful to have been released from that cube. It tries to tell Hikaru its name, but then it realizes that it can't actually remember what its name is. Hikaru still can't handle the fact that he has an arm on his back, but then he realizes that the arm isn't actually attached to his back, it's just stuck to his jacket. Before he can think of what to do next, a drone shows up to investigate the area. That leads Hikaru to believe that the robot arm must belong to the Kagami Group, and he doesn't want to get into any trouble, so he starts taking off his jacket so he can return it. But the drone engages and tries to kill him. Hikaru begins running for his life, thinking the drone is after him because of the mechanical arm. When he falls over, he tries to return the arm so he doesn't get attacked anymore, but it turns out that the drone is specifically trying to kill him. The arm has to step in and defend him. Hikaru is traumatized from the near-death experience and has no idea why the murder drone would be targeting him instead of the arm. But the arm tells him they don't have any time to relax because even more drones are on their way, and the only way he's going to make it out alive is if they work together. Meanwhile, at the Kagami headquarters, the president is informed that the drones have located the missing trigger arm, but it seems to be in the possession of a random kid. One of the higher-ups asks if the boy is affiliated with the arms organization, but according to their background check, he really is just a random kid who happened to find it. The higher-up orders a 2 kilometers perimeter to be formed so the kid can't escape, and for all available forces to be focused on capturing the trigger arm. He doesn't really care what happens to the kid, though. At the same time, Hikaru and the arm have evaded detection by the drones, and while Hikaru is grateful to be safe, he still wants an explanation as to what the arm is and why he's being hunted because of it. Unfortunately, the arm doesn't remember anything, so it can't answer Hikaru's questions. However, the arm does know that Hikaru is a kind person for saving it. Normally, the arm wouldn't be able to move at all without arbitrium, but with Hikaru, it has buttery smooth joints. Hikaru congratulates it on its freedom, but he's not going to be involved anymore. He intends to leave the arm behind, along with his jacket. The arm should be fine since it can move on its own. But the arm begs him not to go, warning that it isn't safe out there. The way Hikaru sees it, he's only in danger because of the arm, so distancing himself from it seems like the best way to ensure his safety. However, as he moves farther away, he notices that the arm gets quieter. When he turns around, he sees that the arm has almost completely lost power. After a bit of testing, he confirms that the arm really does lose power every time he gets too far away, which means, for better or worse, he's stuck with it. The drones eventually catch up to them, but this time, the arm says it will handle things itself. It grabs the floor and begins dragging Hikaru around to get him away from the drones. While this is happening, the weapons developer watches from a nearby water tower, disappointed that the trigger arm turned out to be so pathetic. But he still needs to retrieve it, so he decides to let the drones handle it for now. More importantly, he receives intel that he's not the only one after the trigger arm, so he knows he'll have to deal with that girl again. Meanwhile, Iki has just arrived in the area, but her intel provider tells her she's heading in the wrong direction. He tells her to go south, but Iki doesn't know which way is south, so he rephrases, telling her to turn right instead. She needs to get to the other side of the building, but going back would take too long. So she finds a little alleyway and intends to go through there, although she'll have to ask Dex and Cinnes to disengage for now so she can fit through the wall. Hikaru is running out of steam from being chased for so long. While the arms maneuver was definitely faster, it drained a lot of Hikaru's energy, and he can't keep going much longer. Suddenly, Iki grabs him and throws him to the floor while she deals with the drones. She then turns to Hikaru and the arm, calling the arm Alma and threatening to kill them if they move. Dex reminds her that her job is to protect them, not kill them. But before Dex can properly explain things to Hikaru, the weapons developer shows up, still holding a grudge against Iki for stealing Alma from him. He plans to make her pay. While Iki and the weapons developer are distracted, arguing with one another, Hikaru notices an alleyway behind him and makes a run for it. Aki notices him slipping away, but she's too wide with her Mecha-Ude to go after him, so she's stuck dealing with the weapons developer. On the other side of the wall, Hikaru keeps running, but he's starting to regret ever coming here. Seeing Hikaru struggle, Alma tells him to stop and leave him behind. Those chasing them are only after Alma, so if Hikaru leaves him, he should be able to escape unharmed. Even if Alma is right, Hikaru knows Alma can't move without him, so he's hesitant to abandon him. Iki soon defeats the weapons developer and catches up to them, once again threatening to hurt them if they don't comply with her demands. Alma tells her to wait and promises to listen to her demands as long as she lets Hikaru go. But Hikaru refuses to leave. He may regret it, but he's choosing to stick by Alma's side. Since Hikaru looks like he's going to resist, Aki prepares to beat him into submission. Hikaru isn't confident in his ability to win, but Alma assures him that together they can take Aki down. He just needs to step forward and let Alma handle the rest. Hikaru doesn't know how this is going to end, but he decides to trust Alma and charges straight towards Aki. Aki was prepared to defend herself at first, but when Alma leaped into the air and transformed, it knocked the wind right out of her, leaving her gasping for air on the ground. Hikaru and Alma take the opportunity to flee. A few hours later, when the coast is clear, they come out of hiding and continue running away. Meanwhile, Iki returns to base and reports her failure to capture Alma. She couldn't have predicted that the kid would be capable of utilizing Alma's power. But even if he got away for now, there's no doubt Kagami's group will track him down soon enough, so they have to act quickly and find him first. The next day, Hikaru ends up taking Alma to school with him since he has nowhere to keep him. He's trying to keep a low profile so the people after him won't find him. However, as he gets to his class, he's horrified to discover that Aki is transferring into his class and she doesn't look happy. While Hikaru tries to ignore Aki's piercing glare, someone else has their sights set on him. Two agents, Tuz and Wanner, are observing him from a nearby building. They work for the Kagami Group and have been tasked with recovering the trigger arm by any means necessary, including murder. Although Tuz isn't too keen on the idea of killing a kid. After class, Hikaru sneaks into the bathroom to avoid Aki, never expecting she'd follow him into school. It doesn't seem like she's looking for a fight this time, but Hikaru suspects she simply doesn't want to cause a scene in the school. Either way, if she doesn't intend to fight here, Alma suggests they try talking to her instead. Yesterday, the situation was too chaotic to avoid a confrontation. But on reflection, it seemed Aki was trying to be somewhat friendly at first, even though Hikaru remembers it differently. Still, Hikaru doesn't have many people he can confide in about Alma. His options are either to go with Aki or head to the police. He asks Alma for advice, but Alma is too distracted by the fun he's having messing with the toilet paper. Meanwhile, Aki has been eavesdropping from the other stall. She warns Hikaru that going to the police would be a mistake, as they'd likely hand him over to Kagami. Then, she climbs into Hikaru's stall, declaring that she's there to be his bodyguard. Hikaru, flustered by how close she is in the boys' restroom, bolts out of there, with Aki chasing after him. Later on, Hikaru manages to lose Aki and is having lunch with his friends, but given how Aki has been tailing him recently, his friends are beginning to think he might be dating her. Hikaru denies it, though it's hard to be convincing. especially when Eki appears on the roof seconds later, searching for him. Hikaru's friends call out to Eki, pointing out that he's there. But Hikaru has vanished in that split second. Having climbed out of sight, Alma can't understand why Hikaru is being so evasive when they had already decided to try and talk to her. At that moment, another classmate of Hikaru's arrives on the roof. She's been searching for Eki and introduces herself as Meru. She's excited to meet Eki, but is met with an icy stare. Meru brushes it off, assuming Eki is just nervous since she's new here, and offers her a tray of cookies as a welcome gift. Hikaru expects Eki to lose it, but instead, she seems puzzled by the cookies and grabs a handful, shoving them into her mouth. Meru is taken aback by how fast Eki devours the cookies, but is pleased her gift was accepted. She then asks if they can be friends, and Eki casually agrees. Eki appears more normal than Hikaru had originally thought, but that doesn't mean he's eager to talk to her. To avoid her, he puts on noise-canceling headphones and tries to sleep until the school day ends. Meanwhile, as Eki continues eating the cookies, Meru asks about her relationship with Hikaru, and Eki suddenly remembers she was supposed to be looking for him. Wanting to be helpful, Meru suggests a plan to get Eki some alone time with Hikaru. Later that day, as Hikaru is sneaking out of school, Meru catches up to him and hands him a handwritten letter from Eki. Hikaru already has a sense of what this is about, and as he suspected, Eki wants to meet him. Meru insists on dragging Hikaru to an abandoned section of the school, believing Eki is going to confess her love. With no other option, Hikaru walks into the classroom where Eki awaits and confronts her about involving Meru in this. Eki denies having anything to do with Meru's involvement, claiming it was all Meru's idea. Still, Hikaru is frustrated, as Eki has been trailing him all day, and he demands to know what she wants. Eki explains that she's a member of an organization called ARMS and has been assigned to watch over Alma as his bodyguard. Alma is thrilled by this news, thinking it means they'll be protected. But Eki clarifies that her duty is only to protect Alma, not Hikaru, although she can't really separate the two since Alma is linked to him. As part of her mission, she needs to bring them both to headquarters. Eki assures them Hikaru won't be harmed if he cooperates, and Alma is pleased by the news. However, Hikaru remains skeptical about trusting Eki and going with her. Alma understands Hikaru's hesitation, but points out that Eki seems to know something important about him, and Alma is eager to find out more about who or what he is. Feeling bad for Alma, Hikaru reluctantly agrees to go with Eki, despite his distrust. Before he does, though, he asks why Alma's power weakens whenever they're apart. Eki, stunned by what she's just witnessed, can't wrap her head around how a Mecha-Ude can fuse to a jacket, as nothing like this has ever been documented. She gets closer to Hikaru, insisting on taking him in for tests, but her intensity freaks him out, and he asks Alma if there's any way they can escape from this situation. Alma tries to use the same power they used against Eki yesterday, but despite the bright flash of light, it doesn't work because Alma lacks the strength. With no other option, Hikaru grabs Alma and starts running. However, when he tries to escape through the front door, Meru blocks him, insisting that he finish talking to Eki before she lets him leave. Meanwhile, outside the building, Tuz and Wanner are keeping watch. But since a schoolgirl is standing at the entrance, they can't act without exposing themselves. Inside, Hikaru is still trying to find an exit, but all the doors are boarded shut, leaving him no choice but to head upstairs. Meanwhile, Eki is searching for him, and while Dex suggests going down the right hall and Sinise advises the left, Eki ignores them both, opting instead to break through the floor and land directly on top of Hikaru. With his escape route blocked, Hikaru is cornered. Eki is confused as to why Hikaru is running, especially after he chose to spare her life the day before. Hikaru insists he could never kill anyone, but Eki assumes he's plotting something and using Alma to achieve it. Alma tries to defend Hikaru, explaining he isn't a bad person, but Eki still doesn't believe it. When Alma attempts to use his power to protect Hikaru again, nothing happens. Eki takes this as proof that Hikaru isn't truly bonded with Alma, and she decides to eliminate him to safeguard Alma. Just then, Meru walks in. Having heard a loud noise, and completely misinterprets the situation based on the awkward position they're in. Embarrassed, she quickly leaves to give them privacy. With Meru gone, Eki is about to resume her plan to eliminate Hikaru, but he has already hidden, forcing her to search for him again. Once she's gone, Hikaru makes another attempt to leave through the front door, only to be stopped this time by Wanner, who is wearing a Kagami Group uniform, immediately putting Hikaru on edge. Wanner tells Hikaru he needs his help, but Hikaru isn't interested, especially after nearly being killed by Kagami's drones. Wanner apologizes for the drone attack, admitting it was a mistake, but his apology is more about them failing to kill Hikaru sooner. He then blasts Hikaru with a sonic cannon, and though it causes no physical harm, Hikaru becomes dizzy and collapses. With Hikaru incapacitated, Wanner kicks the door open, giving Tuz a clear shot, but he's blocking her line of sight. By the time Wanner steps aside, Alma has managed to drag Hikaru to safety, avoiding the shot, but they're still in grave danger. Hikaru gets up and runs back into the building. Tuz, frustrated with Wanner for interfering, begins firing through the walls, hoping to hit Hikaru. He's genuinely scared for his life, but Alma has something else on his mind. Despite Wanner using a Mecha-Ude, Alma can't sense any consciousness from it. Just then, Wanner hits Hikaru with another sonic wave, and Hikaru collapses again at the end of the hallway. Tuz takes her shot, but at the last second, Eki saves Hikaru. Wanner fires another sonic wave, and though Eki tries to block it, she also gets dizzy and collapses. Just like Hikaru, Wanner is clearly enjoying their suffering, but Eki refuses to give up. As she still needs to protect Alma, she forces herself back up and urges Hikaru to run while he still has the chance. Hikaru hesitates, not wanting to leave Eki behind to fight alone, but she insists, saying they can't let the Kagami Group capture Alma. Reluctantly, Hikaru runs away while Eki keeps Wanner occupied. However, Wanner pulls out a new weapon that Eki isn't prepared for. As Hikaru climbs the stairs, his frustration grows with the constant attacks. Alma, however, stops him, suggesting they shouldn't leave Eki alone after all. Hikaru points out that Eki herself said they needed to flee to protect Alma, but Alma doesn't like the idea of abandoning her. He jumps off Hikaru's back, punching a hole through the wall to create an escape route for Hikaru, while he plans to go back and help Eki. But Alma loses power as soon as he gets too far from Hikaru. Realizing this, Hikaru agrees to go with him, as Alma can't function without him. Still, they need a plan to confront Wanner and his sonic cannon. It turns out Wanner has already defeated Eki by using shackles that suppress the consciousness of Mecha-Ude, and he's currently dragging her to the roof for Tuz to take her out. To Wanner's surprise, Tuz has come down in person, frustrated by how long it's taking him to finish the job. She mocks Eki for her pathetic state, but refrains from killing her, as their orders are to bring Eki back alive. She orders Wanner to head back into the building to search for Hikaru, but Wanner doesn't have to search for long since Hikaru is already coming up the stairs. The moment Hikaru spots him, he throws a punch, but Wanner easily dodges it. Hikaru isn't exactly a trained fighter. Still, while Hikaru's attack may not land, he's confident that Wanner's won't have much effect on him either. Wanner, unfazed, tries to blast him with the sonic cannon, but Hikaru wasn't bluffing earlier. His noise-canceling earpieces make him immune to the sonic wave. He was only trying to buy time for Eki to recover, but when he glances over at her, he realizes she's already been captured. That throws a wrench in his plan, but Hikaru quickly thinks of something else. He hurls Alma towards Eki in an attempt to free her Mecha-Ude from the shackles. Unfortunately, Alma begins losing power as he gets farther from Hikaru, forcing Hikaru to rush closer. In a stroke of luck or incompetence, Tuz, who's supposed to be a sniper, misses what should have been an easy shot. Still, Alma and Hikaru manage to free Eki, and as soon as she regains control, she grabs Tuz and uses her as a human shield to charge at Wanner. Wanner hesitates to fire at Tuz, but she orders him to shoot for the sake of the mission. He follows through, but the shot only succeeds in knocking Tuz out. With that, Eki takes the opportunity to knock Wanner out cold. The fight has caused so much damage to the building that it's on the verge of collapsing. Just before it does, Tuz regains consciousness and flies off, leaving Wanner behind to be buried under the rubble with the others. Eki and Hikaru make it out unscathed, but Eki's boss from ARMS soon arrives on the scene, clearly displeased with the destruction she caused to complete her mission. They take Hikaru back to their headquarters, and when he wakes up, he's introduced to the leader of arms, Algis, and his Mecha-Ude, Fist. Algis explains that their group is fighting against the Kagami organization, whose ultimate goal is to seize control of all the Mecha-Ude and use them like slaves. Alma, who doesn't remember much, is surprised to learn that Fist is apparently his brother, and the arms group needs his help to win the ongoing war. Without hesitation, Alma offers his support, and he convinces Hikaru to join in as well. However, Aki and Algis tell Hikaru that they only actually need Alma for this, so he doesn't really have to be here. While Hikaru was asleep, they conducted some tests on him to measure the levels of arbitrium in his body. Arbitrium is an energy generated by the human mind, which serves as fuel for all Mecha-Ude. However, when Hikaru's arbitrium levels were plotted on a graph, it was clear that his levels were drastically different. This is what his levels look like compared to the average Mecha-Ude user. In short, Hikaru is a failure when it comes to wielding Mecha-Ude, and there's no way to sugarcoat it. Algis acknowledges that while Hikaru may have been the one to awaken Alma, he is also the reason Alma is now fused to a jacket, and Hikaru can't even tap into Alma's power. To make matters worse, they have no choice but to leave Alma in his care for now. Though Algis stresses that Hikaru is not allowed to act on his own in any situation because he's not capable of handling things, Alma tries to defend Hikaru, mentioning that he's the reason Alma wasn't captured by Kagami. But despite that, Quen points out that Hikaru still lacks the power to use Alma effectively, making him a liability. At this moment, Aki interrupts, expressing her belief that Hikaru might be able to unlock Alma's potential. After all, he did harness Alma's power the first time they met, so she's confident that with some training, he can become stronger. So far, this training has mostly consisted of Alma doing push-ups on the school roof. And while Hikaru is grateful that Aki is helping him train, he's unsure how useful this method is since Alma is the one doing all the moving, and Hikaru is just sitting there. Aki explains that training arbitrium is about spirit, so Hikaru just needs to psych himself up to get stronger. While that sounds fine, it still doesn't make sense to Hikaru how simple exercise could boost his arbitrium, but he decides to go along with it for now. A few moments later, Aki receives a call from Arms, instructing her to return to HQ. She abruptly cuts Hikaru and Alma's training short and takes them with her. There have been numerous incidents recently where Mecha-Ude are being ripped away from their wielders, and this latest case marks the third victim this week. Algis suspects this might be the work of a new Kagami agent, so retrieving the stolen Mecha-Ude as quickly as possible has become the top priority. Alma doesn't quite grasp why there's such urgency, so Dex clarifies that when a Mecha-Ude is forcibly separated from its wielder, the person dies within days. The exact cause isn't fully understood, but they suspect it's because arbitrium leaks from the fusion point, weakening the person until they eventually pass away. Although much about arbitrium remains a mystery, they do know it has significant effects on the human body. For example, anyone who fuses with a Mecha-Ude gains incredible physical abilities. But since Alma didn't fuse with Hikaru's body, he's still just a regular human. Aki notices some distinct marks on the victim's arms, immediately identifying the attacker as someone using a worm-type mecha. Algis quickly picks up on where Aki's thoughts are heading, reminding her that her main responsibility is to protect Alma at all costs, and she shouldn't get involved in this case even if she has personal reasons. After Algis leaves, Aki promptly disregards his instructions, stating that there's something she needs to investigate for personal reasons, and since she has to guard Hikaru, he's coming along with her. Meanwhile, at the Kagami Group headquarters, they're in a scramble trying to locate Jun, Kagami's younger brother. He apparently stole an experimental artificial Mecha-Ude and vanished, leaving everyone unsure of his intentions. The leader of the 3rd Division offers to take care of the situation, but since this division was responsible for allowing Alma to escape last time, the task is instead handed over to the White Ravens. Elsewhere, Hikaru is out late into the night with Aki, and by now, he's figured out that she's investigating the case, despite Algis telling her not to. He's not sure sure if it's really okay for them to be out here alone. But Aki doesn't answer his concerns. Suddenly, they hear car horns nearby, and just on the other side of some containers, the White Ravens are busy searching for Kagami's younger brother. Their leader, Imada, instructs his men to continue searching, but as Aki and Hikaru approach, Hikaru feels uneasy about interacting with anyone from the Kagami Group. Aki reassures him that everything will be fine as long as he sticks close to her and keeps Alma hidden. Aki then asks Imada if he knows anything about a worm-type Mecha-Ude wielder. At first, they think she's just an ordinary girl, but as soon as she mentions Mecha-Ude, Imada and his group become hostile. Since they can't allow regular people to know about the mechas, they quickly move in to capture her, leaving Aki no choice but to fight back. So she calls out Cinnes and Dex for help. Imada is stunned to realize she's a mecha wielder, but even so, he orders the White Ravens to regroup and launch another attack. Amidst the chaos, Hikaru is blown back and struggles to get to his feet. While doing so, he notices a young boy with an inhaler hiding in a corner. Hikaru warns the boy that it's dangerous to stay there and asks if he's okay, but the boy doesn't respond and runs off. Concerned, Hikaru decides to follow him, leaving Aki to handle the White Ravens. Imada sees Hikaru give chase, so he transforms his Mecha-Ude into a bike and takes off in pursuit of the boy as well. At the same time, a few White Raven members catch up to the kid and Hikaru, so Hikaru steps in front of the boy to protect him. The White Raven guys are more than ready to beat Hikaru down to get to the kid, but just before Hikaru can get hit, Alma emerges and blocks the attack. That's when they notice Imada speeding towards them on his Mecha-Ude bike. Hikaru turns to tell the kid to run, only to realize the boy has already vanished. Imada, having lost his original target, shifts focus and decides to go after Alma instead. Realizing they're being targeted, Alma attempts to pull Hikaru to safety, but there's no way Alma could outpace a motorcycle. Imada quickly catches up and seizes Alma, feeling proud of himself for capturing the trigger arm. Suddenly, Aki appears out of nowhere, knocking Imada off his bike. She immediately begins questioning Imada and Joe about a worm-type Mecha-Ude wielder. They don't want to be crushed by a container, so they agree to cooperate. But unfortunately, they have no information about such a wielder. Disappointed, Aki drops the container and lets them go. Her frustration doesn't end there, she's also furious at Hikaru for running off on his own. Hikaru tries to explain that he saw the kid being chased and wanted to help, but Aki isn't interested in his excuses. His reckless actions nearly got Alma captured, and while she wants to believe in him, he's still powerless. She tells him he can't do anything on his own. Meanwhile, the boy from earlier watches from the rooftops, clearly interested in Alma and planning to strike at the right moment. On the ground, Hikaru is equally angry at Aki. After all, she was the one who dragged him into this situation against his will. So if anyone is to blame, it's her. She didn't even bother to explain her mission, so why should he trust her enough to follow orders? Frustrated, he declares that he's just going to head home. Cinnes and Dex ask Aki if it's really okay to let Hikaru leave on his own, but she's still too mad to care what happens to him. As Hikaru walks away, Alma urges him to go apologize to Aki because she's been the one protecting them. But Hikaru refuses. Jun, observing this tension, sees an opportunity. Hikaru's argument with his bodyguard makes it easier for him to steal Alma before he can act. However, Aki intercepts him, still feeling responsible for Hikaru's safety. Jun had hoped to avoid confronting her, but with no other choice, he summons his Mecha-Ude. Aki is enraged when she sees that it's a worm type, believing Jun is the person she's been hunting. However, after they clash, Dex realizes that Jun isn't the one Aki is after. This momentary distraction allows Jun to surround Aki, putting her in a dangerous position. Meanwhile, Hikaru reflects on his argument with Aki when he suddenly receives a call from her phone. Alma suggests he apologize while he has the chance, but when Hikaru checks his phone, he sees a picture of Aki lying unconscious on the ground. Jun, using Aki's phone, informs Hikaru that he's stripped Aki of her Mecha-Ude, and without them, she will die in a few hours. If Hikaru wants to save her, he'll have to meet Jun at a designated location. Hikaru immediately calls Algis to report what happened, but Algis, while concerned for Aki, warns Hikaru not to face Jun. That's exactly what Jun wants. For now, Algi says he'll send agents to track them down and tells Hikaru to stay put, sick of being told he's too weak to do anything. Hikaru starts to believe it might be true, but Alma assures him that when he puts his mind to something, he's capable of greatness. Hikaru disagrees, saying that every heroic act he's performed so far has been because of Alma's influence. He admits he's powerless on his own, but right now, he's not alone. He asks Alma for strength for what's coming. Hikaru and Alma make their way to the abandoned warehouse marked on Jun's map. As they enter, Jun greets them with a grin. Alma demands to know why Jun is doing this, and Jun reveals that he's after the strongest Mecha-Ude. While Cinnies and Dex are decent, they're nothing compared to what he really wants, the trigger arm. It's said that whoever fuses with it will gain the strongest body, and Jun wants that power for himself. Jun begins attacking with his Mecha-Ude, forcing Hikaru to dodge around the room. When the chance arises, Hikaru tries to grab Cinnies and Dex, but Jun anticipates his moves and blocks every attempt, mocking Hikaru for being weak. Jun believes he has the upper hand. Hikaru, though, doesn't deny his weakness, but refuses to let it stop him from doing what's right. Charging forward again, he manages to outmaneuver Jun and break through his defenses. Furious that Hikaru is making him struggle, Jun's asthma starts acting up, and he decides to finish things quickly, forming a giant cage around Hikaru. Jun electrocutes him until Hikaru collapses. With Hikaru down, Jun begins ripping Alma away from him. As they're separated, Jun finally thinks he's won. But to his shock, Alma continues to move and knocks him over. Jun is baffled. Mecha-Ude aren't supposed to function on their own. His confusion deepens when Hikaru also stands up, despite being on the verge of death after losing his mecha. As Hikaru reaches for Alma, their contact unleashes Alma's true power. Worrying Jun, he tries to form a fist to knock them out, but Hikaru and Alma easily overpower him, crushing his attack. In a final blow, Hikaru charges in and finishes the fight with a punch, leaving Jun defeated. Just as Hikaru and Alma start to relax, the head of the White Ravens shows up. Though Hikaru and Alma brace for another battle, the man assures them he's not being paid to fight them today. He just wants to take Jun and leave. He also grabs Cinnies and Dex, intending to take them too, but Hikaru refuses to let him get away with them. Ready for a confrontation, the man is stopped by Jun, who insists on being the one to defeat Hikaru, forbidding the man from harming him for now. Reluctantly, the man returns the Mecha-Ude to Hikaru, promising they will meet again, and next time, Hikaru won't escape so easily. A while later, Eki wakes up in the hospital with Cinnies and Dex reattached. Upon learning that Hikaru saved her, she goes to meet him on the rooftop, where he's busy sewing Alma back into his jacket. Awkwardly, Eki sits next to him. Hikaru, breaking the silence, asks what she was looking for the previous night. Eki explains she was searching for the person who killed her family, and the only clue she has is that the culprit is a worm-type Mecha-Ude wielder. It turns out Jun wasn't the one, and she regrets acting so impulsively in her pursuit of revenge. Grateful that Hikaru saved her, she offers to sew Alma back together for him, but she's terrible at sewing, and Hikaru tries to stop her. Just then, Meru walks in with sweets and completely misunderstands the situation. Hikaru has now been officially inducted into ARMS, and only a few days later, he is dispatched on his first mission for the team. While clinging to the top of a transport truck that it's holding captured Mecha-Ude, Hikaru sees a rather dangerous-looking, heavyset man inside, beating up a scientist. The other ARMS members, already anticipating this scene, remind Hikaru to stick to the plan and activate the impulse they gave him as the truck nears the interchange up ahead. Hikaru is determined to follow instructions, but when Alma witnesses the man abusing his shackled Mecha-Ude, he can't just stand by. He acts, causing the truck to flip, leading to a major road accident. Hikaru gets out unharmed, but now must flee, as Alma's actions have exposed their position, making Hikaru a target. Unfortunately, the heavyset man throws the truck in Hikaru's path, cutting off his escape, and things look bleak. ARMS member Tani and his mecha, Carex, decide to step in. The man launches missiles at Hikaru, who narrowly avoids them. But with 3 mechas on him, the man brings out an arm cannon and aims to incinerate Hikaru. Just in time, Tani zooms in, pulling Hikaru to safety. Grateful, Hikaru thanks Tani, and Alma apologizes for the chaos his impulsiveness caused. They don't have much time to talk, though, as the man locates them and renews his attack, only this time, Iki intercepts, knocking him down. She's disappointed that Hikaru and Alma bungled such a straightforward mission and tells Tani to get them out before they create more problems. Once the man rises again, he notices that Eki has 2 mechas, but he still considers himself superior because he has 3. He tries to kick her, but she easily counters, and when he attempts to blast her, he runs out of energy and collapses. Using multiple Mecha-Udes evidently requires extensive stamina and training, something this guy lacks, especially given he's never even been to a gym. Confident he won't be getting up anytime soon, Aki calls the recovery team, but as she turns away, someone else appears, using a worm-type mecha to do something to the man. Before she realizes it, he's back on his feet and stronger than ever. Aki struggles to match his newfound strength, and things look grim until Hikaru dashes in and sends the man flying. Aki yells at him for not following her orders to escape, but Hikaru couldn't just stand by when she needed help. The man retaliates with his laser cannon, but Hikaru and Alma see it coming, easily deflecting the blast. The man tries to crush them with a truck, but Hikaru emerges unharmed, charging forward and landing a powerful punch that knocks the guy out. With the fight over, Tani congratulates Hikaru on his efforts, saying his actions allowed them to rescue numerous Mecha-Udes. Hikaru appreciates the praise, though Iki seems more focused on the man they captured. Later, at HQ, as Iki showers, she remembers a promise to protect her sister, a promise she ultimately couldn't keep. Now, the only thing she can do is avenge her family. Outside the shower area, a scientist Iki asked for help waits for her. When she emerges, he panics, flustered at seeing her fresh out of the shower. He explains he's there to report that they found no useful information from the man they captured. They examined the Mecha-Udes, and none were worm types, though Eki distinctly recalls seeing one, indicating something unusual is going on. The scientist assures Eki of his support in her quest for vengeance, suggesting she should rely on him over Hikaru. But by the time he finishes, Aki has already left to find Hikaru. At Hikaru's house, Alma wakes up and realizes they overslept. In a rush, Alma tries to get Hikaru out of bed, even offering to help him get dressed. Just then, Aki bursts in through the window, declaring she'll help him get ready for school, and she won't take no for an answer. Meanwhile, at school, students buzz about a rumored new transfer student who's apparently incredibly wealthy. Just as the door opens, they turn to see Aki holding a half-dressed Hikaru, causing everyone to jump to conclusions. Meru is already imagining things, but Aki sets Hikaru down, announcing the new student's arrival. This news is also new to Aki. Suddenly, a call comes over the PA for Hikaru to go to the roof. There, they find Jun waiting. Upon seeing him, Sinise and Dex immediately attack, recalling what Jun did to Aki previously. However, he blocks her assault with his mecha, irritated by the interruption. Before he can retaliate, he gets a message from Tado, leader of the White Ravens, reminding him of his promise not to use his mecha at school. Jun reluctantly withdraws, forced to comply with Tado's orders. Even as he protests that Eki attacked first, Aki is ready to knock him out, but Hikaru steps in, sensing that Jun no longer wants to fight. Jun, however, vows that he'll claim the trigger arm eventually, though for now, his focus is on Hikaru, his true reason for coming to this school. The scientist who created Jun's mecha informed him that it would need time to adapt to his body until he fully controls it. Jun plans to observe Hikaru, aiming to uncover the secret that allows Hikaru to use Alma so effectively. Once he understands this secret, he intends to crush Hikaru and claim the trigger arm for himself. Hikaru notices Jun continually referring to Alma as the trigger arm, so he asks if Jun has any additional information about him, given Alma's memory loss. Before Jun can answer, Aki attacks him again, deeming him too dangerous to leave alive. She's fully committed to finishing him off, but Hikaru and Alma intervene, reasoning that Jun may hold crucial insights into Alma's past. During the scuffle, Jun takes his leave, reminding Hikaru that his mecha restrictions only apply to the school. If he encounters Hikaru outside, he won't let him escape. Later, as Aki and Hikaru walk through the school halls, Aki stays very close. Much to Hikaru's annoyance, he tries to distract her with an imaginary rice ball to create some space, but it doesn't last long, as Aki seems to be wherever he goes. He eventually shakes her off by sacrificing his lunch, but now he's left hungry. Just as he contemplates his options, he hears Jun's voice from above. Jun recalls asking Tado if he knew what made Hikaru capable of wielding the trigger arm with no training. Tado had no answer, suggesting it might even be something in Hikaru's diet. Waving his black card, Jun offers to buy Hikaru lunch to find out. Hikaru finds the offer odd, but uses the opportunity to ask Jun about Alma's past. However, before Jun can respond, Aki sweeps Hikaru's legs, unwilling to let Jun get too close. Still, she'd happily accept Jun's offer of a free lunch, and already knows what she wants. Later, while Hikaru sits alone in the bathroom for some peace, he tells Alma he's at a loss with Aki constantly blocking his attempts to talk to Jun. He knows Jun holds answers about Alma's past, but Aki seems indifferent, and Hikaru worries he'll never get the chance to ask. Just then, he has an idea. Today's the school sports tournament. Out on the field, he hopes to find an opening to speak with Jun, but Jun is nowhere to be found. Just then, Hikaru is hit in the face with a ball. Jun, watching from a nearby tree, can't believe how slow Hikaru's reaction time is despite having the strongest mecha. Sensing something coming his way, Jun dodges, but another ball bounces off the tree, ricocheting onto Hikaru's head, knocking him out cold. This time, it was Aki who threw it, aiming for Jun and accidentally hitting Hikaru instead. While Hikaru is unconscious, Meru seizes the opportunity to indulge a fantasy. She ties him up in a ribbon and imagines a showdown between Aki and Jun over him. Later, Aki, still holding a grudge against Jun, is ready for a fight, and Jun, always ready for action, agrees to the challenge, though they settle for a fistfight in front of Meru, who is thoroughly entertained. Alma urges Hikaru to find a way to talk Aki out of it since he still needs to speak with Jun. Hikaru realizes that food might be the only way to convince Aki. He offers to treat her to a buffet if she'll let him have a few moments alone with Jun. Tempted, Aki agrees and drags Meru away, giving Hikaru and Jun some privacy. Once alone, Jun asks what Hikaru wanted to discuss. Hikaru and Alma start asking if he knows anything about Alma's past, especially since the Kagami Group seems determined to capture him. Alma explains that he lost all his memories, and any information Jun can share would be valuable. Shocked to learn that the trigger arm has amnesia, Jun reveals that the Kagami Group archives contain numerous records about Alma, as he originally belonged to them. Jun even shows a photo as proof, an image of Alma alongside Yakumo Kagami, the Kagami Group's founder and the individual responsible for shaping the city as it is today. This revelation stuns both Hikaru and Alma, but Jun can't offer much more, as the photo dates back several decades. As Jun departs, Aki watches from a nearby bridge, with Meru still tied up beside her. She then receives a call from the scientist she'd spoken to earlier, who has found a lead on the worm-type Mecha-Ude user she's been hunting. Later, Hikaru and Alma head to the city library to research Yakumo Kagami. Alma struggles to understand why people here adore the Kagami Group, considering the terrible things they've done to Mecha-Udes. Hikaru agrees that their recent actions are abhorrent, but points out that from the public's perspective, the Kagami Group has done a lot to improve the city, thus earning their loyalty. As they browse, they come across a portrait of Yakumo Kagami, and Alma sheds robotic tears, sensing the importance of this figure, though his memories remain blank. Elsewhere, Tani has just been captured by the worm-type mecha user, with Aki being the first to arrive at the scene. Before she can help, the worm-type user rips Karax out of Tani's body, tossing Tani at Aki and crushing Karax until he shatters into pieces. Enraged, Aki, Sinis, and Dex attack the worm user, who narrowly escapes and launches a device into Tani's open wound, turning him into a puppet to fight Aki. The worm user then attempts to flee. Torn between helping Tani and capturing the worm user, Aki decides to knock Tani out and remove the worm control device. Hikaru receives a call about Tani's condition and rushes to find him unconscious in an alleyway. Back at HQ, thanks to Hikaru's quick response, Tani is expected to recover, though Karax cannot be saved. Mecha-Udes, though mechanical life forms, die just as humans do. They originated from another dimension in search of Ordella, the progenitor of all Mecha-Udes. With the aid of certain humans, they eventually found it, but an accident during an experiment to awaken it led Alma to deplete his power to seal it away, likely causing his memory loss. The key to Ordella lies within Alma's forgotten memories, and whoever unlocks it may hold the fate of the world in their hands. When Eki met with Quen, he informed her that the worm-type user she was after was still at large. He realized this only after noticing that incident reports pointed to someone other than Jun stripping people of their mecha. This had been happening for months, and Eki angrily grabbed him by the collar, demanding to know why he hadn't told her sooner. In his defense, he had only just discovered it himself. The only reason he knew now was that he hacked into the ARM's database to assist Eki. She let him go but quickly realized that if this information had been in the ARM's database for months, it meant Algiz knew about it all along and chose not to share it with her. Quen suggested that Algiz might have been personally investigating these incidents, as he had been tracking them for 8 years. Suddenly, an alarm blared, signaling that the worm-type user was active once more. Without wasting a moment, Aki rushed out, determined to confront the enemy responsible for her parents' and sister's deaths. She eventually located the worm user in an empty parking garage, ready to avenge her lost family. But as she drew closer, prepared to strike, she finally got a good look at the worm user's face. To her shock, it was her little sister, Fubuki. When Eki and Fubuki were younger, they used to play games with Cines and Dex. Eki never fully grasped the purpose of those games. Moments later, their mother came into the room and called for Fubuki, as it was her turn to undergo experiments. Normally, this would have been Eki's duty, but because her leg was injured, Fubuki stepped in. Fubuki left the room with a smile, and that was the last time Eki saw her. The next thing Eki knew, the facility erupted into flames, and neither Fubuki nor their parents were ever seen again until now. Eki, Cines, and Dex were all in disbelief, unable to comprehend that Fubuki was still alive. Fubuki, despite her obvious happiness to see Eki, was in rough shape, as evident from her coughing. Her worm mecha emerged, and in that instant, Cines and Dex grabbed it and slammed it into a wall. There were still so many unanswered questions, but they had to leave immediately, as ARM's agents were closing in. By the time the agents arrived, all they found was a crack in the wall and one of Eki's broken hair clips. Algiz deduced that she must have been there. Outside the garage, Aki held the worm mecha captive, determined to get answers. She demanded to know if it was responsible for killing her parents. The mecha tried to explain, insisting it was an accident, but Cines and Dex refused to listen, convinced it was lying. Cines remembered that day clearly. He had seen the worm mecha attack everyone, though he still didn't understand why. Fubuki desperately begged Eki to stop, insisting that Amaryllis wasn't to blame for their parents' deaths. Instead, Fubuki took the blame upon herself, repeatedly apologizing to Eki, while Amaryllis tried to comfort her. It became clear there was more to the story than they initially knew. Cines and Dex demanded that Amaryllis explain everything that had happened that day. On the day of the incident, things had seemed normal. Fubuki had been happily recounting the game she'd played with Eki to their mother. The experiment was supposed to explore the potential of arbitrium amplification. Amaryllis, alongside another woman, entered the room. However, when Amaryllis locked eyes with Fubuki, an unexpected phenomenon occurred, causing their arbitrium to resonate. Amaryllis tried to stop it by fusing with Fubuki, but it only made things worse. Fubuki had longed to talk to Eki about it, but lacked the courage, feeling responsible for their parents' deaths. Amaryllis assured her it wasn't her fault, but even if Amaryllis claimed it was accidental, Eki couldn't help but hold her responsible. Despite Fubuki's pleas, Eki was determined to destroy Amaryllis then and there. However, overwhelmed by stress, Fubuki fainted, something Amaryllis had feared. Eki thought they should take Fubuki to a hospital, but Amaryllis insisted it was pointless. After the incident, Fubuki had developed a condition preventing her from producing her own arbitrium. No doctor or ARMS scientist could help, though they had managed her symptoms so far. Fubuki wouldn't survive much longer. According to Amaryllis, there was only one way to save her, and it would be a difficult path to follow. The next morning, when Hikaru's alarm goes off, Alma wakes him up, mentioning that this is usually the time Eki comes crashing through his window. However, today the window is still intact, and instead of her usual entrance, Eki rings the front doorbell. Both Hikaru and Alma immediately sense something is off. As Aki never uses the front door, she clearly doesn't want to discuss it. So Hikaru decides not to press her. At that moment, Maru runs up to them with something on her mind. With a big test coming up, she proposes a group study session, including Jun, who has been spying on Hikaru from a distance all morning. She approaches Jun and asks if he would like to join. But Jun dismisses the idea, claiming he didn't come to school to study. Maru ignores his remark and calls over to Hikaru, asking if they can have the study session at his place. Hikaru considers it, tempted by the idea of spending time with Maru. However, he's wary because he knows Aki and Jun are likely to get into a fight, and he'd rather not deal with that in his house. He tries to dissuade Maru, but she persists and asks Aki to support her. Aki declines politely, and Maru tries to convince her, pointing out that it would be a great opportunity to visit Hikaru's house. Aki, who goes there every morning anyway, doesn't see anything special about the idea and walks away. Hikaru follows her, sensing that something is wrong, but Aki refuses to explain. Meanwhile, at ARMS HQ, one of the scientists grows frustrated with the lack of information and approaches Quen's workstation to ask if he knows anything about Aki, who hasn't been to HQ in a while. Quen initially denies any knowledge, but after some aggressive persuasion, he admits he might have had a role in Aki's current predicament. Elsewhere, Aki is sitting beside her sick sister, Fubuki, while Amaryllis explains how they've managed so far. Since Fubuki can't produce her own arbitrium, Amaryllis has been extracting arbitrium from other mecha users and feeding it to her. But Fubuki's illness is worsening, and Amaryllis is struggling to keep up. Time is running out, and Amaryllis urges Aki to do whatever is necessary to save her sister. Unfortunately, the only way to ensure Fubuki's survival is to take Hikaru's life. At the same time, across the city, mecha users infected by Amaryllis, both from ARMS and the Kagami Group, begin lashing out violently for no apparent reason. Algiz suspects the cause and orders all available ARMS agents into the field to subdue the rogue mecha users. The Kagami Group receives similar orders. Later that evening, Meru, Jun, and Hikaru head to Hikaru's house to study. However, Hikaru receives an urgent message from Algiz and has to cancel, running off in the opposite direction. He arrives at ARMS HQ, where Algiz apologizes for the short notice but explains that he needs Hikaru's help. Dozens of mecha users have suddenly gone out of control, and Algiz believes the worm-type mecha user is responsible. He also shows Hikaru footage of Aki interacting with a worm user, raising suspicions that she might be involved. If Aki is guilty, she has betrayed both humanity and the Mecha-Ude. Algiz wants to bring her in for questioning, and force may be necessary. Hikaru and Alma are shocked that Algiz would even consider Aki a traitor, as she has always been a loyal comrade. But Algiz explains that an organization can't operate on feelings alone. Oki joined ARMS because her goals aligned with theirs, but if her priorities have changed, she could easily betray them. Hikaru refuses to believe Aki would do such a thing and sets out to find her before ARMS does. Quen points out that Hikaru has no clue where to look. Quen has considered their options and comes up with a solution. They will use Wanner, the guy who tried to kill Hikaru days earlier. Wanner clearly doesn't want to be there, but he doesn't have much choice. Before they get to tracking Aki, Wanner's mecha appears, apologizing profusely for Wanner's past actions. Hikaru is confused, as he thought Wanner's mecha had been brainwashed. ARMS managed to free Kagemaru, who chose to refuse with Wanner despite being reluctant. Kagemaru is determined to teach Wanner the meaning of fighting for justice, even if it means pounding it into his head. Kagemaru forces Wanner to kneel and apologize to Hikaru and Alma, promising to be helpful in their mission. In town, Kagemaru scans for Aki, but Wanner complains non-stop about wanting to go home, annoying Kagemaru, who yells at him to focus. Hikaru and Alma start to doubt if this is the best approach, but Kagemaru insists they'll find Aki soon using acoustic sonar to track her arbitrium. Suddenly, Hikaru is attacked from behind. Kagemaru pulls him to safety, and they discover Jun, who is tired of Hikaru avoiding him. Jun declares he won't leave Hikaru's side until he uncovers the secret behind his power. If Jun plans to stick around, Alma asks if he'll help search for Aki. But Jun has no interest, as he never liked her. Alma promises to share Hikaru's secrets during the study session if Jun helps, and Jun agrees. When Tado hears of this, he informs Jun's brother, who couldn't care less about Jun's safety and prioritizes the company. Kagemaru finally tracks Aki's Arbitrium signal to a parking garage. When they arrive, they find Aki, who appears ready to follow through on Amaryllis's advice. If it means saving her sister, Aki is prepared to take Hikaru's life if necessary. Hikaru and Alma, concerned about her, start questioning if she might have gotten mixed up in something involving the worm user, as Algaz mentioned. However, she quickly interrupts, insisting that Hikaru needs to come with her. Hikaru, trusting her, agrees but still wants an explanation of what's happening. Yet, despite his agreement, Aki suddenly leaps into the air and attacks him. Completely taken by surprise, Hikaru is defenseless, but before Aki can knock him out, Jun intervenes to protect him. Jun still doesn't like Hikaru as a person, but he has already sworn that he will be the one to defeat him, so he's not going to let Aki beat him to it. Aki tries to kick her way past Jun, but he still outclasses her in strength by a lot. So, within a few moments, he has Aki totally restrained. However, Hikaru comes up behind Jun and tells him to release Aki immediately. Sure, she may have attacked him first, but Hikaru is sure she has a good reason. He asks her to calm down and listen to him. He doesn't know what she's going through, but he's willing to help her if she will just tell him what's going on. Aki appears reluctant to speak, so Sinise and Dex inform Hikaru that Aki's sister is actually alive, though she's suffering from a severe lack of arbitrium and requires a substantial amount to survive. According to Amaryllis, Aki has been tirelessly searching for a way to save her. Given that Hikaru managed to awaken Alma, he might possess enough arbitrium in his body to heal Fubuki. However, the moment Amaryllis's name is brought up, Jun bursts into laughter, as he immediately understands the situation. The Kagami Group has extensive records on Amaryllis, and they are confident that she has likely taken Fubuki hostage and is manipulating her. Sinise and Dex don't believe Jun, so they start yelling at him. Hikaru interrupts and says he is still willing to go with Aki since they are friends. Aki is a little surprised since this is the first time Hikaru has ever called her his friend. Speaking of which, Alma reminds them that they still have a buffet to go to after this, so they should hurry up and help Aki so they can take her as well. Jun becomes frustrated because it's like they didn't hear him when he specifically said that Amaryllis is trying to trick them. He refuses to let Hikaru go, but Hikaru shakes Jun off and tells him he has no right to stop him. Hikaru then turns to Aki, extending his hand to her so they can go help Fubuki together. However, as Aki recalls how kind Hikaru has always been to her, she finds herself unable to go through with sacrificing him as she initially intended. Instead, she tells him she doesn't need his help, insisting there must be other ways to save Fubuki without involving an outsider like Hikaru in her family issues. To drive the point home, she adds that she's not his friend, so he shouldn't act so familiar with her. With that, she heads back to Fubuki, leaving Hikaru puzzled, while Jun simply thinks Aki is foolish for not recognizing Amaryllis's true intentions. Meanwhile, the two scientists are working hard to find any information related to Aki, and they soon come across some files on Amaryllis in a Kagami Group database. The files say Amaryllis went out of control one day and caused the deaths of all people involved in the experiment, including Fubuki. They believe Amaryllis must be behind all of this, but they can't figure out why she would become active now when so much time has passed. They don't have many clues, but they believe they can find something if they analyze the lip movement from the day Aki met the worm user. Meanwhile, Aki returns to Fubuki and Amaryllis, but with Hikaru absent, Amaryllis immediately questions her about the situation. Aki informs her that Hikaru won't be joining them, leaving Amaryllis stunned, unable to believe Aki would back out of their arrangement at such a critical moment. Aki tries to explain that she doesn't want to involve outsiders in their family issues and believes they should find a solution on their own. However, Fubuki accuses her of caring more about Hikaru than about her own sister, insisting that if Aki truly loved her, she should have no hesitation in sacrificing Hikaru for her sake. Since she's not willing to do that, Fubuki asks her if she's going to abandon her and let her die like last time. You might as well call the fire department with all this gaslighting, But Eki is still too blinded by sisterly love to realize that something is off about Fubuki's behavior, so she offers to take Hikaru's place and act as Fubuki's arbitrium battery. At the same time, Alma is trying to convince Hikaru that he should go after Akai, but he doesn't think he has the right to get involved in her affairs. She clearly said she didn't need his help, and her need for revenge is something he could never relate to, so he doesn't want to get in her way. Throughout this, Jun has been standing off to the side, keeping to himself since he's indifferent to Aki's situation. But when he hears Hikaru say he doesn't want to interfere with Aki's plans, it stirs a memory of when he felt similarly about his own brother. Suddenly, he becomes intensely motivated to push Hikaru into going after Aki. Grabbing him by the collar, Jun tells him to stop pitying himself and make a choice. Does he want to let Aki go, or does he want to stay by her side? Faced with this ultimatum, Hikaru admits that he still wants to help Aki, feeling encouraged to act on it. He may technically be an outsider in Aki's situation, but Alma tells him that what's important is the way he feels, and Hikaru is the kind of person who can't ignore others in trouble. Now that it has been decided that they are going to help Akai, Alma asks Wanner and Kagemaru to help them track her down again. Kagemaru is more than happy to help, but Wanner wants to go home. Meanwhile, back at Arms, Quinn has figured out that the worm user is really Aki's sister. However, it makes no sense to him since records clearly show that Fubuki should be dead. Besides, why would she only choose to show up now of all times? At that moment, Algis appears behind Quinn and informs him that Amaryllis has shown up because she's after Hikaru's arbitrium. Quinn is startled, first by the realization that Algis has been standing behind him the whole time, and even more so because Algis already knows about Amaryllis. Algis explains that Amaryllis came out of hiding once she realized Alma had been awakened, so he was attempting to manage the situation quietly before it spiraled out of control. He hadn't expected Aki to cope with the harsh truth that her deceased sister was being manipulated by Amaryllis, but her secrecy only pushed Aki to a point where Amaryllis could manipulate her. Back with Aki and Amaryllis, Amaryllis is frustrated that Aki didn't bring Hikaru to her after all the trouble she went through to play the part of Aki's sister. She drops the act and decides that she's just going to get rid of Aki with her puppets. Aki is starting to realize that the real Fubuki would never act this way, and Amaryllis calls her an idiot for taking this long to figure it out. Amaryllis launches an attack on Aki using her puppets, and while Aki defends herself quite well, Amaryllis shifts to behaving like Fubuki to catch Aki off guard. While Aki is momentarily distracted, Amaryllis seizes the opportunity to grab and restrain her. Although Amaryllis had originally planned to use Fubuki's body as her host for a while longer, now that Aki is within reach, she considers taking her body as well. Sinise and Dex attempt to intervene, but Amaryllis is aware that Aki won't allow them to destroy her, as it would mean harming Fubuki too. This situation mirrors the moment when Amaryllis first took over Fubuki's body, as Aki and Fubuki's parents desperately tried to free their daughter. But Amaryllis had no intention of relinquishing such a valuable puppet, so she ended up killing Fubuki's parents with her own 2 hands. After hearing this, Aki is devastated, and Amaryllis is about to finish her off to take over her body. But at the last second, Hikaru and Jun come crashing through the window and knock Amaryllis down. Aki yells at Hikaru for coming here when he knows Amaryllis is after him, but he says he doesn't care about the danger because he is here to save his friend. Now that her main target is in the room, Amaryllis gets up and tries to grab Hikaru. However, Jun stops her and says he's not letting anyone besides him lay a hand on Hikaru. Aki tries to get Jun to stop so he doesn't hurt Fubuki, but Jun doesn't care about Fubuki's well-being. He's just here to make sure Amaryllis doesn't kill Hikaru. At that moment, Amaryllis seizes Jun and hurls him aside to get closer to Hikaru, but Jun, refusing to back down, uses his mecha to restrain her. Amaryllis finds it laughable that Jun believes he can defeat her with a mecha that, in her view, is a cheap imitation of her power. She thinks it's ironic that a failure like him wields such a mecha. Jun, insulted, is about to respond when Amaryllis covers his mouth and resumes her assault on Hikaru. Alma intercepts the strike, but quickly realizes that each time Amaryllis lands a blow, he can feel energy draining from his body. realizing it will be challenging to fight if Amaryllis can absorb their strength during battle. Aki steps in front of Hikaru, ready to defend him. Amaryllis taunts her, asking if she still thinks she's fit to act as Hikaru's bodyguard after everything she's done. But Aki isn't protecting Hikaru because she's his bodyguard right now. She protects him because she cares about him. That's all well and good, but as long as Amaryllis has Fubuki's body, Aki can't hurt her without risking her sister's life, making Aki almost useless in this fight. Aki gets captured, so Hikaru is left to defend himself. He holds his ground well, but then Amaryllis starts using Aki as a human shield. This keeps Hikaru distracted long enough for Amaryllis to stab him with one of her tentacles. Once she's inside him, she begins draining him of as much arbitrium as she can. As she suspected, Hikaru possesses the same extraordinary arbitrium from 100 years ago. When she mentions this, Alma feels a vague sense that something important occurred a century ago. Noticing Alma's bewildered expression, Amaryllis realizes the rumors of his memory loss are true, which for some reason enrages her. She stabs Hikaru further, intent on extracting his arbitrium. Now that she's finally tapping into Hikaru's power, she no longer has any use for Aki and decides to eliminate her by strangling her. But as Aki calls out for help, Hikaru's body reacts, beginning to overflow with arbitrium. Amaryllis is overjoyed by the sheer amount of arbitrium, more than she's ever had. However, Hikaru and Alma keep charging the arbitrium, causing it to overload her system. While Amaryllis is distracted by the overload, Hikaru and Alma free Aki from her hold. As they do so, a massive flash of light erupts. When the dust finally settles, Hikaru, Aki, and Jun find themselves on the ground together, unsure of what just happened. But one thing Jun is certain about is that he will make Amaryllis pay for what she said to him. He gets up, grabs Amaryllis with his mecha, and begins trying to rip her out of Fubuki's body. Though Amaryllis tries to hold on, Jun, fueled by sheer spite, manages to overpower her and pull her away from Fubuki. Once Fubuki is freed, she regains control of her body, and Aki feels immense relief seeing her sister unharmed. However, even though Amaryllis has been separated from her main host, she still commands the rest of her puppets. She attempts to use them to capture Aki, but without Fubuki as a shield, Aki can easily fight back. Hikaru then steps in, and with Alma's assistance, they finally defeat Amaryllis. In her final moments before being destroyed, Amaryllis blames Alma, accusing him of being the reason she turned out this way and holding him responsible for Yukumo Kagami's death. The next morning, life returns to normal. Aki busts through Hikaru's newly repaired window, and the two of them head to school together. On the way, Aki apologizes to Hikaru for causing him so much trouble, but Hikaru tells her she doesn't need to worry about it since that's what friends are, for they help each other in times of need. In that case, Aki says she has another favor to ask of him. She wants him to help her study. This seems like a simple request, but Hikaru doesn't understand why she would want to study now since she already missed all the tests. Aki shares her plan to study so she can help Fubuki catch up on the 8 years of school she missed once she fully recovers. Currently, Fubuki is undergoing physical therapy to get used to her body again, with ARMS providing excellent care for her. Aki has decided to remain with the organization and promises to keep a 24-hour watch over Hikaru. Although Hikaru appreciates having Aki around, he reassures her that she doesn't need to follow him so closely. Meanwhile, at the Kagami Group's research lab, they have completed the construction of a gate leading to the Mecha-Ude world. Once there, they can seize control of all dormant mechas, but the gate requires the Ordella to power it. The only thing that can activate the Ordella is Alma. They are prepared to use all their resources to capture him. The next day, while heading to school, Hikaru's friends secretly observe him from around a corner. They notice two very suspicious individuals approaching and bothering both Hikaru and Aki. It turns out these two are actually ARMS agents, dispatched as extra bodyguards for Hikaru because Aki has struggled to ensure his safety on her own. Since the directive came straight from ARMS, Aki has no authority to decline their assistance. Coincidentally, Kazuya happens to be nearby. After failing to make any progress on capturing Hikaru, he was stripped of his mecha and demoted to security guard duty. However, once he notices Hikaru, he thinks this is his chance to regain his honor, so he tries to arrest him. But before he can do that, Eiki grabs Hikaru's hand and jumps off the bridge with him onto the back of a moving truck. The truck driver, apparently oblivious to the sound of two teenagers landing on his truck, just keeps driving with Hikaru and Aki on top. Hikaru is visibly disappointed that his day is starting out like this. Alma expresses regret for disrupting Hikaru's normal life, but Hikaru reassures him there's no need to apologize because they're in this together. No matter how chaotic things get, they'll face it side by side at least until Alma can recover his lost memories. On the topic of Alma's memories, Alma has been wanting to share something important with Hikaru, but before he can, they're interrupted by Cinnes and Dex. The two are deeply engrossed in a philosophical argument over whether honey or jam is the superior choice. They're trying to prepare breakfast for Hikaru and Aki before the truck reaches the school, but Hikaru points out that the truck is actually heading in the wrong direction. Now that he thinks about it, he has no idea where the truck is really going. Suddenly, the truck stops as the driver gets knocked out by a blow dart. Members of the Kagami Group have come to capture Hikaru, including the 3rd Division leader, a girl, and a new guy. The 3rd Division head, clearly uninterested in being there, tells his subordinates to get it over with quickly. That's all the girl needed to hear. She starts firing dozens of spikes at Hikaru with her shackled mecha machine gun. Aki takes Hikaru and ducks behind the truck as the girl fires into it, ensuring the truck driver has no chance of survival. For now, Aki tells Hikaru to leave this to her and head to school so he doesn't get marked absent. Hikaru agrees and starts running away. Kazuya, however, steps in to block his way. At the same time, Hikaru's friends are restraining Ahiyama and Kayano due to a misunderstanding, rendering them useless in the situation. Kazuya announces his plan to capture Hikaru in order to restore his reputation, but the new recruit from the 3rd Division interrupts. Climbing onto the truck, the newcomer declares that he'll take charge of capturing Hikaru. As he prepares to strike, Kazuya realizes that the newcomer's mecha is the very same one that was taken from him after his demotion. Enraged, Kazuya launches an attack on the new guy, engaging in a fierce struggle to reclaim his mecha. Amidst the chaos, Aki reminds Hikaru to head to school, so he starts running again. This time, his path is blocked by the unconscious body of the new guy. Turning around, he finds that Kazuya has regained his mecha and must now face him. Meanwhile, Aki sneaks up on the girl and tries to take her down, but she narrowly avoids her and lines up a perfect shot with her minigun. Unfortunately, she accidentally jumps backward into Kazuya, knocking him over. She yells at him for getting in her way, while Kazuya yells back at her for bumping into him with her edgy eye patch. As soon as she gets off him, Kazuya resumes his assault on Hikaru. Hikaru, however, leaps into the air, and he and Alma shift into battle mode. Kazuya strikes with his whip, but Hikaru and Alma skillfully evade the attack and grab hold of the chain, hurling Kazuya directly into the girl and sending them both crashing to the ground. The girl now looks mortified, with Kazuya ending up sitting on her. While the two are caught in their awkward predicament, Aki quietly approaches from behind and swiftly knocks them both unconscious. Seeing his team defeated, the division head decides he's done enough and clocks out for the day. He asks the sniper girl to pick up the others if she gets the chance, though he doesn't particularly care. Aki and Hikaru are in the process of tying everyone up when Alma says he has something important to tell Hikaru. Before he can, Aki calls Hikaru over for help, as she's tangled up pretty badly. While Hikaru works on untying her, Kazuya regains consciousness and tries to attack. Alma notices in time and blocks it, but Hikaru falls over and knocks himself out. When Hikaru regains consciousness, he sees the Kagami Group members tied up, but Alma is clearly distressed over letting Hikaru get hurt. Hikaru tries to comfort him, but Alma insists that Hikaru would be better off without him, not wanting anyone else to suffer. Hikaru suspects that Alma might have regained his memories, and Alma confirms this. Hikaru sees it as good news, but Alma reveals he's actually had his memories back since the fight with the Marileys. Perplexed, Hikaru asks why Alma chose to keep it a secret, but Alma dodges the question and begins crawling away. Normally, Iki would chase after Alma to keep him safe, but she reasons there's no need since Alma can't get more than 5 meters away from Hikaru without losing power. The only problem is that Alma isn't losing power, he's really fast for an arm. And soon, Hikaru and Iki lose track of him. Back at Arms, Algis informs Hikaru that Alma must have regained his memories after encountering Amaryllis. Fist reveals that Alma used to have a unique ability to produce his own arbitrium, which has likely returned. The revelation stuns everyone, prompting them to question why this information hadn't been revealed sooner. Fist explains that bringing up Alma's traumatic memories too soon could have caused him to shut down completely. Despite this, the priority now is finding Alma. When Hikaru volunteers to help, Algis tells him that, with Alma now capable of moving independently, Hikaru's involvement is no longer necessary. Algis firmly advises Hikaru to stay out of the matter. Both Hikaru and Quen are a bit shocked upon hearing Algis say this, but Quen remarks that it's a good thing since it means Hikaru can go back to his ordinary life. Hikaru, however, refuses to accept this. He can't just go back to being a civilian after everything he has been through with Alma. Seeing how insistent Hikaru is, Algis and Fist relent and decide to tell him the whole truth. In the Mecha-Ude world, their planet had nearly exhausted its supply of arbitrium, pushing the Mecha-Udes to the brink of extinction. Alma, Fist, and another companion embarked on a journey to find the legendary Ordella, a relic said to hold the power to restore their dying world. However, along the way, they began to lose functionality due to a severe lack of energy. Fortunately, they managed to reach Earth before completely shutting down. On the night of their arrival, Yakumo Kagami, who was exploring his family's mines, spotted a bright light and went to investigate. That's when he first encountered Alma. Shortly after their meeting, a mine collapse occurred, which would have almost certainly killed Yakumo if he had been alone. But with Alma's help, Yakumo fused with him and escaped in time. Meanwhile, Fist fused with Yakumo's older brother, Tsukihito, who had a disease related to arbitrium. Tsukihito agreed to join the Mecha-Udes in their search for Ordella, hoping to find a cure for himself. Yakumo, intrigued by the adventure, also agreed to help, thinking it sounded like fun. The group set out to search for Ordella together, and after considerable effort, they eventually discovered it. They spent days researching and meticulously preparing to activate it. However, Yakumo started feeling uneasy. The process seemed to be unfolding far too perfectly, prompting him to share his worries with Tsukihito. In an attempt to reassure him, Tsukihito explained that all the test results were within the expected parameters, making it impossible for anything to go wrong. The next day, during the process of awakening Ordella, disaster struck. Tsukihito had conducted all the necessary tests, but hadn't considered the aftermath of Ordella's awakening. Ordella turned out to be powerful, but not very friendly. It instantly knocked out Tsukihito and Fist and gravely injured Yakumo. Alma was the only one left unharmed, and he had no idea how to face something so powerful. Despite his injuries, Yakumo calmed Alma down, telling him they could get through this together. They shifted into battle mode, but approaching Ordella was no simple task. Yakumo slammed the ground, causing chunks of rock to fly up and distract Ordella. While it was preoccupied with the debris, Yakumo and Alma took the opportunity to attack from above, delivering a blow that successfully resealed the relic. Although their mission was a success, the battle came at a devastating cost. Yakumo succumbed to his injuries shortly afterward. Grief-stricken by the loss of his close friend, Alma shut down and remained inactive until the day he met Hikaru. Now that Alma remembers his past, he refuses to let Hikaru face the same fate as Yakumo, determined to protect him. Alma tries to get as far away as possible. As Alma crawls into an alley, he encounters Jun. Spotting Alma alone, Jun attempts to fuse with him but fails repeatedly. Frustrated but accepting, Jun concludes that he's not ready to fuse with Alma yet. Noticing Alma's sadness, Jun asks what happened. Meanwhile, Hikaru stands on the edge of a bridge, looking lost and dejected. Out of the blue, he gets a call from Jun, but to his shock, it's Alma on the line. Alma starts reflecting on the day they first met, recalling how Hikaru, despite knowing nothing about him, chose to help him without hesitation. Alma commends Hikaru's kindness, but explains that he can't continue to rely on it any longer. Now that he's able to move on his own, Alma insists that Hikaru should go back to living his normal life and savor it. Confused and hurt, Hikaru tries to understand Alma's reasoning and pleads with him, but Alma is resolute and ends the call. Planning to stick with Jun for a while, Alma doesn't get far before Todo appears, clearly not there for a friendly chat. Back on the bridge, Hikaru continues to contemplate his life when Aki shows up, asking if he's found Alma yet. Hikaru tells her there's no point, explaining that Alma doesn't need him anymore. Before he can say more, Aki punches him in the face. She apologizes for hitting him so hard, saying she tried to hold back but couldn't stand hearing him talk like that. Aki contends that Alma is behaving this way because he's still tormented by his past. She empathizes, knowing how paralyzing guilt can be, and insists that Alma needs someone by his side now more than ever, even if Hikaru believes Alma no longer needs him. Aki does, and she pleads with him to help her bring Alma back. Understanding the truth in her words, Hikaru decides to join her in searching for Alma once more. Suddenly, Aki gets a call from ARMS HQ. They inform her that they've just received news of Alma being captured by the Kagami Group, who intend to use him to unseal Ordella. Jun assumes Todo has come to drag him back home, but he refuses to go willingly. In a panic, he grabs Alma and tries to wield him like a baseball bat. Todo, however, effortlessly catches him and quickly secures Alma with a shackle to keep him restrained. He explains that he's actually acting under orders from Jun's older brother and apologizes, but he makes it clear that he has no choice but to take both of them back to Kagami HQ. Without further ado, he tosses them into the back of a truck. Aki and Hikaru are currently looking for Alma, but since Hikaru's running speed is way too slow, she's carrying him on her shoulders to save time. However, they still have no idea where to find Alma, so Quen calls Aki and tells her he found someone to help them search. A couple of seconds later, Kagami comes crashing down on the roof and boldly declares that he is here to assist Aki in the search. But Wana really just wants to go home because he's sick of hearing Kagami's voice. Even Hikaru doesn't like listening to Kagami, mostly because he's always yelling so loudly that the Kagami Group scouts on the ground nearly hear them. Aki tries to call Quen back to ask if they can get someone else to come, but she can't get a hold of him for some reason. On Quen's side, he discovers that all external signals have been cut off. Not long after, Kayano bursts in to inform him that a citywide jamming signal is interfering with their communications. If they want to locate Alma, they'll have no choice but to head out into the field themselves. Although they don't yet have any concrete information on who's responsible, Algis is already certain that the Kagami Group is involved, prompting him to take matters into his own hands. At the same time, Todo has just arrived at the Kagami Ordella Research Lab with Alma and Jun apprehended, and the Division 3 director is really happy to see this because it means they can finally move on to the next stage of the plan. He praises Jun for finding and capturing Alma, but as one of his assistants takes Alma to the holding chamber, he realizes that Jun has been gagged for some reason. He asks what this is about, but Todo just tells him they were just having a bit of fun. The director doesn't want to pry into Jun's kinks, so he just thanks him for the good work and invites him to have a front row seat to the most important event of the century. Jun has no idea what he's looking at, so the director explains that the massive structure before him is the Ordella Gate, a portal designed to connect to the world of the Mecha-Ude. Once they succeed in awakening Ordella, they plan to use its power to invade the Mecha-Ude world and enslave its inhabitants for the Kagami Group's benefit. Jun is stunned by what he hears, unable to believe that his brother would go to such lengths for a plan he finds utterly ridiculous. At that moment, Jun's older brother, Naohito, arrives, visibly annoyed that Jun's ugly face is ruining his big moment. However, since everything is already in place, Naohito doesn't bother kicking him out and instead orders the team to proceed with awakening Ordella. As the Ordella sequence is commenced, Alma regains his consciousness but starts panicking when he sees Ordella before him. He figures out that the scientists are trying to use him to break the seal on Ordella, and he tries to talk them out of it because Ordella is too dangerous to be unleashed. The director is sure that with all the technological advancements they've made over the years, they can fully control Ordella's power. Once he has Ordella under his control, he will be able to open the gate to the Mecha-Ude world. He's even willing to let Alma see some of his old friends there, but he's still going to shackle every single one of those Mecha-Ude. Alma longs to see his home world again, but there's a major issue. Ordella is in a portal. While Alma can't fully articulate why, he is absolutely certain that Ordella isn't what the director believes it to be. Desperately, he begs the director to stop the process before it's too late. However, the director dismisses Alma's warning, assuming it's just a bluff to buy time, and proceeds to initiate the activation sequence. As Ordella begins to awaken, the containment field designed to control it starts to malfunction, causing Jun to worry that the situation is spiraling out of control. The scientists monitoring Ordella report that its arbitrium levels are continuing to rise, warning that they won't be able to keep it restrained for much longer. Shortly after, Ordella begins to lash out and destroy things. When Jun asks Naohito to put a stop to this because it's too dangerous, Naohito just laughs and says this is exactly what he wanted to happen. The entire lab begins to fall apart as Ordella's power continues to grow, and the permeating icicles are so large that Hikaru and Aki can see them all the way from the street. They know this means something terrible has happened, but before Aki can decide on the next step to take, Hikaru has already run off to try and save Alma. In the lab, the director is still reeling from the fact that his perfect plan has completely unraveled. However, the situation has become far too dangerous for him to stay, and his assistants urge him to evacuate with them immediately. Meanwhile, Naohito remains in the control room, completely unfazed by the danger. His personal safety is irrelevant to him. The only thing that matters is achieving his goal. Before the chaos escalated, Todo made sure to move Jun to a safe location to ensure he wouldn't be harmed. When Jun wakes up, he starts demanding answers, wanting to know what's going on. Todo is willing to explain everything, but he warns Jun that once he learns the truth, he'll need to be prepared to act on it. Meanwhile, up on the roof, the director is about to get in his helicopter and flee the scene with Alma so he doesn't get hurt. But before he can do so, Hikaru yells for him to let Alma go. The director recognizes Hikaru as the one who used to have Alma, so he orders his people to capture him. That's when Hikaru realizes that it may have been a bad idea to come here by himself. Aki is trying her hardest to locate him, but without her here, he's pretty much powerless. The director tells everyone to ignore him and get on the helicopter. Out of nowhere, Quen arrives to back up Hikaru, grateful for the help. Hikaru asks Quen to distract these guys while he searches for a key. However, Quen is just as clueless as Hikaru when it comes to fighting, and has no idea how he's supposed to keep them occupied. The girl begins firing her machine gun at him, and by some miracle of probability, Quen doesn't get hit even once, but he stands absolutely no chance against a mecha user in a fight. So he's going to have to think of something quick if he doesn't want to die. He looks around for a second, and that's when he notices a shackled Mecha-Ude nearby. He pulls out a device that he made to undo the shackles and runs over to the mecha to free it so they can fuse together. He might not have much fighting experience, but now that he's got a mecha, he's at least enough of a threat to hold his ground for a little while. Unfortunately, he has never trained his body to support a mecha before, so after a few minutes of use, he runs out of arbitrium and nearly passes out. It looks like he's back to running for his life again, so he apologizes for not being able to do more to help his team. But Aki tells him he did great because he bought more than enough time for her to get back with Hikaru and Wanner. Unfortunately, Aki is stopped by Kazuha, who demands a rematch after their previous encounter. He refuses to let her pass without a fight. Having undergone a procedure to deeply integrate his mecha into his body, Kazuha is confident that this upgrade will allow him to surpass Aki in every way. To make a point, Aki doesn't even bother blocking his attack with Sinnies or Dex. Instead, she catches his whip with her bare hands. She bluntly tells him that his mecha isn't the problem, it's his lack of skill and strength that keeps him losing time and time again. Until he acknowledges his weaknesses and works to overcome them, he'll never stand a chance against her. Enraged, Kazuha refuses to accept that he's weaker and charges at her again. This time, however, Aki has no patience for further theatrics, so she swiftly knocks him out. Now that she has dealt with Kazuha, she wants to hurry and catch up to Hikaru and Quen. But before she can leave, someone shows up to interfere with her yet again. The guy is called Namba, and he says he just wants to talk for a little bit. But Aki was never in the mood for a discussion, so she immediately tries to knock him out as well. However, it looks like Namba's nonchalance isn't for nothing because he effortlessly evades Aki and tells her he really doesn't want to fight. He's just here to do his job. Otherwise, his salary is going to get cut, and he can't afford to lose his job because it would ruin his retirement plan. He begs her to just turn around and go home so he doesn't have to beat up a kid. But Aki refuses to withdraw, so Namba is forced to engage in combat against her. Aki starts darting around the room, trying to throw Namba off balance, but when she moves in for a decisive strike, Namba easily blocks her attack with his mecha. He sneers, telling her that little kids like her have no business wielding such powerful mecha. While he acknowledges her skill, he warns that it's time to teach her a painful lesson about not meddling with adults. Drawing his sword mecha, Namba engages Aki in a fierce clash. Despite his extensive experience, Aki holds her own surprisingly well. Meanwhile, Hikaru and Wanner crash land in front of Twos, and the director realizes that the situation is slipping out of his control. Not wanting to waste another moment, he boards his helicopter and prepares to escape. However, just as he is about to take off, his helicopter is stopped by one of the former Division 3 members, Threeg, who is literally holding it with his bare hands. Quen is glad backup arrives, but he doesn't understand why Threeg is helping them. Keanu explains that Threeg has a crush on her, so he's just trying to get on her good side, while he keeps the helicopter from taking off. Keanu says she will handle Twos, so Hikaru and Wanner are free to board the helicopter and take Alma back. Hikaru is ready to do it, but they forget that Fort was still a problem. She starts firing at everyone from the helicopter until she accidentally hits some precariously placed barrels of oil, causing a massive explosion. The force from the explosion sends Hikaru and Wanner flying straight into the girl and the director, so everyone gets knocked unconscious as a result. Namba and Aki hear the sound of a massive explosion from elsewhere in the building. Feeling he's done enough to complete his report, Namba casually tells Aki that he's heading out and she doesn't need to worry about him anymore. Meanwhile, on the helicopter, Hikaru is the first to stir and regain consciousness. Shortly after, the director awakens as well, boiling with anger over the fact that a group of kids has dared to stand in his way. Picking up Ford's gun, he resolves to handle Hikaru personally, with Wanner still unconscious and no mecha to protect him. Hikaru is completely defenseless against the looming threat of gunfire. Luckily, Kagemaru is still conscious, so Hikaru comes up with a good but risky plan to get past the director. He steps out into the line of fire to draw the director's attention, and while he's focused on Hikaru, Kagemaru sneaks up from behind and starts clawing at his face. This buys Hikaru enough time to slip by and get to Alma. Even though Alma is still unconscious, Hikaru is able to tie him to his arm and knock the director out with one punch. Alma wakes up a little while later and finds Hikaru badly injured. He starts freaking out, blaming himself for this whole mess, and tells Hikaru that he didn't need to come to save him because this doesn't involve him anymore. Alma feels responsible for Ordella's awakening and believes it's his duty to stop it alone to prevent anyone else from getting hurt like before. He brings up Yakumo, admitting that he had sensed something was off but was too focused on achieving his goal to pay attention. That mistake cost Yakumo his life. Alma doesn't want the same thing to happen to Hikaru, so he insists on handling the situation by himself. Hikaru, understanding Alma's guilt and the weight he carries over Yakumo's death, sympathizes with him. However, he reminds Alma that they still have a city to save. Determined, Hikaru stands up and declares they need to act quickly if they're going to stop Ordella. When Alma tries to stop him, Hikaru firmly states that even if Alma chooses not to join him, he's still going to fight Ordella on his own. Realizing that Hikaru fighting alone would likely lead to a painful end for both of them, Alma finally gives in and agrees to go with him. Hikaru, confident in their combined strength, reassures Alma that as long as they face this together, everything will turn out fine. Hikaru and Alma leap from the helicopter, flying directly toward Ordella. However, Ordella quickly spots them and unleashes a barrage of lasers and ice spears in their direction. Hikaru and Alma try to smash through the ice, but it's incredibly resilient, refusing to crack under their attacks. The relentless lasers give them no time to catch their breath. Meanwhile, Quen and Keanu analyze the ice crystals, discovering that they're composed of high-density arbitrium. Based on their findings, no human or mecha would be capable of breaking through such crystals. The seal on Ordella may have been broken, but it still isn't able to move around yet, so their best chance at winning is to use Alma's power to restrain it. The rings around Ordella were initially created by Alma, so channeling Alma's arbitrium into them should be enough to seal Ordella again. That means Hikaru and Alma need to aim for the rings around Ordella's body. But it's not going to be an easy job since Ordella will know they are coming. Alma and Hikaru prepare themselves and begin flying toward Ordella again. But as they do so, arbitrium spikes begin getting in their way, and the closer they get, the more relentless the attacks become. At this rate, there's no way Alma and Hikaru can reach the rings. Ordella has no blind spots to exploit and immediately attacks anything that comes near, leaving them uncertain about how to proceed. That's when Hikaru comes up with a plan and asks Quen if he can get a key to assist. After explaining his strategy to the group, it becomes clear that the success of the plan hinges on Tuz and her sniper skills, realizing the grave threat Ordella poses to the city if it isn't stopped. Tuz agrees to help and readies her sniper. The team's goal is to divert Ordella's attention for just a few seconds. With a key providing support, Tuz fires a high-powered shot at max output, landing a direct hit on Ordella's hand, forcing it to react. The bullet does absolutely no damage, but it does manage to get Ordella's attention. Ordella turns around and fires its laser at Tuz instead. Quen and Kagemeru are left in charge of protection duty, so the two of them raise their shields to block the laser. This manages to redirect Ordella's attention long enough for Hikaru and Alma to sneak up behind Ordella and punch the rings to reactivate the seal. At first, it looks like it's working as Ordella begins to shrink, but all of a sudden, the rings stop working, and Ordella goes back to normal. Ordella resumes its relentless assault on Hikaru and Alma, prompting Quen to ask Tuz to fire another shot to distract it. She complies, and once again, the shot successfully draws Ordella's attention. However, Ordella seems to be catching on to their strategy, as it doesn't fully lose track of Hikaru this time and fires an additional laser in his direction. Just as the laser is about to hit, Jun leaps in and blocks the attack, saving Hikaru. Meanwhile, the sustained bombardment from Ordella has destabilized the building where Aki and the others are stationed, forcing them to evacuate before it collapses entirely. Back with Hikaru and Jun, Hikaru thanks Jun for coming to his rescue. Since he's got a new mecha, Jun offers to handle Ordella by himself. But before he can leave, Alma stops him because he thinks it's too dangerous for Jun to get involved. Jun doesn't like the fact that Alma and Hikaru are underestimating him, so to prove them wrong, he pushes them away and charges straight for Ordella. As he gets closer, Ordella begins attacking him with the arbitrium crystals, but Jun wasn't bluffing when he said he could handle this because he is easily able to smash through the crystals as he goes. Both Alma and Hikaru are really impressed. Although the crystals don't pose much of a challenge for him, the lasers remain a significant threat. When Ordella starts shooting, Jun is forced to retreat and take cover. He acknowledges that he might not be able to handle this alone after all. However, Hikaru is more intrigued by the fact that Jun managed to break through the supposedly indestructible arbitrium crystals. Jun then reveals that it's all thanks to the new mecha he received from Todo. This mecha is an upgraded model of his previous one, equipped with the ability to manipulate various flows of arbitrium, provided the user has sufficient skill. Being a capable wielder, Jun finds this task quite manageable. Hikaru and Alma tell Jun he's really cool, and Jun is loving all this praise, but they still have a job to do, and it's not going to be easy to get close to Ordella with those lasers constantly being fired at them. Jun was hoping to save some of his strength for later, but it looks like he's going to have to go all out if he wants to break through. Just as he's about to head out again, Hikaru stops him, but this time, Hikaru says he wants the two of them to work together to stop Ordella. Jun has no issue with teaming up, but he questions what Hikaru plans to do since they already tried sealing Ordella once, and it failed. While that's true, after studying Jun's battle with Ordella, Quen noticed that Jun's mecha seems to have the ability to weaken Ordella upon direct contact. If Jun can pin Ordella down and Hikaru delivers a powerful punch, they might be able to successfully seal it this time. With a plan now in place, Jun breaks off a piece of arbitrium crystal for Hikaru to wield as a weapon, and together, they soar into the sky, ready to strike Ordella from above. Hikaru chucks Jun at Ordella, and Jun successfully manages to restrain it before it can react. Now it's time for Hikaru and Alma to do their part to make sure Ordella doesn't get up anytime soon. They throw the arbitrium crystal at Ordella's core, and Jun begins rebuilding the rings to seal Ordella. Hikaru and Alma get themselves ready for the strongest punch they've ever delivered, or, in this case, with the size of that fist, it's more like a meteor strike. That punch completely levels the Kagami building and everything in the surrounding area, but it does manage to seal Ordella, so everything works out in the end. Although Jun is frustrated that they didn't give him a heads up before unleashing such a destructive punch, he acknowledges that with all the chaos, there's no way the Kagami Group can keep this under wraps, especially with news helicopters capturing everything. On the subject of the Kagami Group, there's still something Jun needs to deal with, so he leaves Hikaru behind and starts walking away. When Hikaru asks where he's headed, Jun simply tells him to stay out of it, explaining that it's a family matter he has to handle alone. Alma doesn't fully understand, but recognizes that this is significant to Jun, so he wishes him the best of luck. A little while later, Jun confronts his brother in a nearby alleyway, but he isn't going to fall for any tricks this time, because he already knows that Amaryllis is the one behind all of this. Amaryllis is surprised he caught her, but even if he knows she's controlling his brother, she doesn't think there's anything a failure like him can do. Jun wastes no time and attacks Amaryllis, but she grabs hold of his mecha and reminds him that she's able to suck arbitrium out of people. She starts draining Jun's energy, but then Jun hits her with the Uno reverse because his new mecha has the same energy draining ability, but his version is better. Jun siphons the energy from Amaryllis and proclaims that he's going to put an end to her once and for all. Amaryllis desperately tries to reason with him, warning that if she's destroyed, his brother could die as well. But Jun has already planned for this. He figured out how to extract a Mecha-Ude from someone without causing them harm, and he puts that knowledge into action against Amaryllis. She writhes in agony on the ground before ultimately losing all power. As the victory sinks in, Jun recalls the conversation he had with Todo about everything leading up to this moment. Todo had initially tried to convince Jun to take the new mecha and defeat Ordella without telling him all the details, but Jun knew Todo was hiding something, and if he was going to go through with this, he wanted the full story. Todo was glad to see Jun being so assertive because it meant he was ready to do what needed to be done. Meanwhile, Hikaru and Alma are standing atop one of the arbitrium spikes. Aside from the mass destruction caused to the city, it looks like all the problems have been solved. At first, Hikaru had planned to stay with Alma only until he recovered his memories. However, Alma now asks if Hikaru would remain by his side until he can find a way back to his homeworld. Hikaru agrees, and the two shake hands to solidify their newfound bond. Meanwhile, on the ground, the situation is far from resolved. Todo appears to have been caught in the chaos and is gravely injured. Despite his condition, he struggles to deliver an important message, making his way over to Quen. Suspecting that Todo might be up to something, Quen calls for Eki to provide backup. When Eki gets down there, Todo collapses from exhaustion, so they realize he isn't here for a fight. At the same time, Algis and Fist pull up on Alma and Hikaru. Now that Alma has his memories back, he wants to properly apologize to Fist for what happened all those years ago. He still hasn't fully gotten over what happened, but he's working to move forward with his life. He asks Algis and Fist to work with him once more, but Fist gives him a mean stare, making it clear he isn't here for a friendly chat. Meanwhile, Eki scales the arbitrium spikes with Todo in tow. As they climb, Todo warns her that Hikaru is in grave danger. He goes on to explain the situation involving Jun's brother, who had been under Amaryllis's control. But it wasn't just Naohito. Amaryllis had been manipulating every head of the Kagami Group for generations. She would transfer herself from one host to the next, draining their energy in the process. Eventually, Naohito uncovered the truth and began devising a plan to defeat Amaryllis before she could take over his body. Naohito knew that after him, Amaryllis would target Jun next, so he wanted to make sure someone would be able to stop her, even if it was too late to save him by then. That's why he began developing the artificial Mecha-Ude. Once completed, it would be able to overpower Amaryllis and cure Jun's illness at the same time. He entrusted his plan to Todo and instructed him to keep it a secret from Jun for his own safety. Todo asked if he was sure about keeping Jun in the dark, since Jun was a lot more capable than Naohito realized, but Naohito felt it was the best option at the time. In the present, Naohito awakens and realizes that Jun truly freed him from Amaryllis's control. He apologizes for putting Jun in so much danger. Jun, however, angrily retorts that he doesn't care about the risks or the secrets Naohito kept from him. What he can't tolerate is being treated like a helpless child. After all, he was more than capable of defeating Amaryllis on his own. Naohito starts to understand that Todo might have been right about Jun being stronger than he had given him credit for. He apologizes for doubting Jun's abilities and expresses his excitement to see all the incredible things Jun will achieve in the future. For now, though, there's still unfinished business. Jun is confused by what Naohito means, so Naohito clarifies that Amaryllis wasn't the one truly orchestrating everything. Meanwhile, atop the spike, Algis restrains Alma with a shackle to immobilize him, revealing that he was Yakumo all along, Alma's Revius wielder. Hikaru is stunned, unable to comprehend what he's seeing, as Yakumo was supposed to have died long ago. Fist confirms that Hikaru is correct. Yakumo is indeed dead, and Fist has merely been controlling his body, using him as a puppet to achieve his own objectives. Turning to Alma, Fist reveals that on the day of the accident, he, like Alma and Amaryllis, also evolved and gained the ability to create his own arbitrium. He reminds them that Ordella was the very reason they all came to this world in the first place. Alma admits that Ordella may hold the key to saving their people, but if awakening Ordella comes at the cost of destroying the human world, Alma doesn't want to do it. Fist corrects Alma, saying he doesn't actually want to awaken Ordella. Instead, he wishes to break the seal on Ordella and take its power for himself. That's why he has secretly been doing research on the matter for the past 100 years. He is sure that if he uses Ordella's power, he will be able to evolve all the other mecha as well. Once he does that, they will be able to make their own arbitrium. On paper, the plan might seem reasonable, but Alma knows better than anyone that the power of Ordella is far too immense for any one person to wield. If Fist goes through with his plan, there's a high chance he'll end up causing harm to the human world again. However, Fist couldn't care less about the collateral damage. He harbors a deep hatred for humans, seeing them as illogical and frail beings. Yet, he also recognizes the irony that Mecha-Ude cannot function without human assistance. Fist's goal is to change that. By harnessing the power of Ordella, mechas would no longer need humans, freeing them to take control of this world and make it their new home. Fist extends his hand and asks Alma to join him in seizing Ordella's power and building a new home for their people in this world. Alma still wants to save his people, but he tells Fist that he isn't willing to sacrifice humans to accomplish that. Fist is disappointed that Alma has become influenced by human stupidity, but it doesn't matter what Alma wants, because Fist intends to do it regardless. He uses more shackles to grab Alma and fuse with him so he can break the seal himself. Fist starts to walk away, but Hikaru refuses to let him leave, even though he lacks the strength to stop him. At that moment, Aki and Jun arrive to warn Hikaru, but they're already too late. Hikaru informs them that Alma has been taken and insists he's going to rescue him. However, as soon as Aki and Jun are within proximity of each other for more than a few seconds, they start arguing over who should accompany Hikaru on his mission to save Alma. Frustrated, Aki shoves Todo into Jun's arms, telling him to focus on helping his friend first. Jun, noticing Todo's dire condition, realizes he truly needs immediate attention. Jun asks what happened, and Todo explains that he tried to stop Fist on his own, but it didn't go as expected. Even though Todo is injured, he says he will be fine on his own, so Jun decides to help Hikaru after all. The three jump down the side of the giant spike. Down on the ground, Fist has just reached the crater with Ordella in it. But before he can break the seal again, Aki, Jun, and Hikaru come flying at him from the sky. Aki accuses Fist of deceiving them all along by pretending to be algaes, but Fist calmly denies lying about anything. He asserts that ARM's mission has always been to save Mecha-Ude, no matter the means, and that nothing about his purpose has changed. Jun, however, couldn't care less about Fist's ambitions. His only concern is that Fist took Alma, and he's determined to get him back. Fist dismisses Jun's efforts, claiming that fighting him is futile since Jun can never win. But suddenly, Fist's body begins malfunctioning, creating enough of a distraction for Jun to land a clean hit and seize Alma. Aki then launches off Jun's head and punches Fist away, so they get Alma back. But when Aki goes back in to attack Fist again, Fist is prepared and uses shackles to bind Cinnies and Dex before pinning Aki to the ground by her neck. Fist then calls out to a small fragment of Amaryllis that survived and was hiding in Jun's jacket. Amaryllis crawls out and hops over to Fist, begging him to grant her more power. Fist injects Amaryllis with a substance called a siren, which appears to be some kind of mecha steroid, as it causes Amaryllis to grow absolutely massive. Without hesitation, Amaryllis knocks Aki aside with overwhelming force. Hikaru wants to intervene, but Jun pulls him back, reminding him that his mecha is the only one naturally equipped to counter Amaryllis. Jun slams Amaryllis to the ground and then turns his attention to Fist. However, Fist, already well versed in the technology of Jun's mecha, manages to steal its capabilities for himself, using it to generate an additional fist on his back. Jun is so shocked to see this that he doesn't notice Amaryllis sneaking up on him. He ends up being pinned to the ground. Fist originally didn't intend to murder anyone, but since Jun keeps getting in his way, he's left with no choice but to send him to an early grave. Just as Fist is about to harm Jun, Hikaru launches a surprise attack from behind. Although the attack doesn't deal any damage, it provides enough of a distraction to prevent Fist from finishing off Jun. Frustrated, Fist turns his attention to Hikaru. Trying to tear himself free, he warns Hikaru to give up and let Alma go, threatening to rip Hikaru's arm off if he doesn't comply. Despite the threat, Hikaru refuses to let go, pouring all his energy into Alma in a desperate attempt to break free. The sudden surge of power takes Fist by surprise, and as the energy courses through him, it causes his cogs to explode. Even if Fist is able to control Yakumo's body, the body is still a corpse, so he must have been using machines to keep it from falling apart until now. Fist realizes that this body won't last much longer, so he wastes no more time and grabs Hikaru before taking him down into the crater with him. He once again rips Alma off Hikaru's body and begins using him to break the seal on Ordella. But as Alma regains consciousness, he begins pleading with Fist to stop this. But it's already too late, as Fist has initiated the process. An arbitrium shell begins forming around him, and he instructs Amaryllis to guard him and ensure no one interferes with the power transfer. As the limitless energy of Ordella flows into his body, Fist feels its overwhelming strength and once again asks Alma if he will reconsider and share Ordella's power with him. Alma, however, ignores Fist's proposal and instead calls out to Hikaru, urging him to get back on his feet. Fist still doesn't understand why his brother refuses to join him. So, even though he's not done inheriting Ordella's powers, he decides to show Alma a little bit of what he's missing out on. Fist begins using Ordella's power, and as he does so, every human in the city has the arbitrium drained straight out of their body until they collapse. Fist finds the whole thing very amusing, but all of a sudden, he gets interrupted by Hikaru, who refuses to let him get away with this. Fist grows frustrated, wishing Hikaru would just stay down. But no matter how many times he's knocked down, Hikaru refuses to give up. Determined, he reaches out for Alma, and together they begin channeling their energy to overwhelm Fist. In a desperate attempt to maintain control, Fist is forced to tear Alma away, along with his own arm. This act halts Fist's display of power, giving the nearby humans a chance to recover. By now, even if Alma is his brother, Fist isn't going to show any more mercy. He fires a deadly blast at Alma. Alma doesn't have enough time to react, so Hikaru pushes him out of the way. And remember how I said Hikaru would get up no matter how many times he's knocked down? Yeah, I don't think he's getting up from this one. Fist is pissed that he wasted a kill shot on Hikaru instead of Alma, but he doesn't have time to fire again because the Arbitrium shell has just finished forming. Fist is nearing the point of fully assimilating with Ordella, while Amaryllis continues to absorb its infinite energy, growing more powerful with each passing moment. Though she's tempted to revel in the overwhelming strength she now wields, Fist instructs her to guard him until the assimilation is finished. As soon as Jun and Aki arrive, Amaryllis wastes no time and launches an attack against them. Jun blocks Amaryllis's attack, but Aki is frozen in shock because she just noticed Hikaru's body on the floor, with a massive hole through his chest. Just then, a cave-in occurs as Amaryllis drags the Arbitrium shell out of the ground and up onto a skyscraper. Meanwhile, back in the crater, Aki manages to get Jun and Hikaru out just in time. But they are both unconscious, and even Aki isn't going to last much longer at this rate. At the arm's base, Kayano is busy analyzing the energy emanating from Fist's shell. Based on her calculations, they have only 30 minutes before Fist completes his assimilation. If he succeeds, he'll gain the power to drain the Arbitrium from every human on Earth. Just then, she notices a stranger standing behind her, someone she's never seen before. The man introduces himself as Natura, the chief analyst for the White Ravens, a division of the Kagami Group. Since both the Kagami Group and ARMS were being manipulated by Fist and Amaryllis, the Kagami Group members want to help out in any way they can. Kayano is still a bit confused by all this, but the situation calls for as much help as possible, so she can't complain. Fortunately for Aki, her friends from ARMS discover her just as she collapses and quickly bring her back to their makeshift base along with Hikaru and Jun for treatment. However, Hikaru's condition remains critical. When Aki finally regains consciousness, her first question is about Hikaru. Quen explains that while Hikaru is still alive, his condition is worsening, and with the limited equipment they have at the base, there may not be much they can do to save him. In the other bed, Jun is still out cold while Naohito and Toto watch over him. The two blame themselves for getting him involved since this is a problem for the adults to fix. However, they can't leave Jun behind without his mecha, so Naohito calls Kazuha and Tuz over and asks them to take care of Jun in his place. Meanwhile, Wanner, visibly panicked after witnessing the enormous Amaryllis and the Arbitrium shell, decides he doesn't want to stay there alone. Instead, he opts to join Kazuha and Tuz, who are heading to a safer location. At the same time, everyone else gathers in the analysis tent for a strategy meeting. The only thing that can break through that Arbitrium shell is the Asclepius mecha, and since Jun isn't available, Toto is going to have to use it to smash the shell. However, getting close to it is still going to be incredibly difficult since Amaryllis is guarding the shell. They are going to need someone to keep Amaryllis busy in the meantime, and Iki volunteers for the job. Meanwhile, an evacuation order is issued to ensure the safety of all citizens, but Meru pays no attention to it, as she's far more interested in uncovering some relationship drama. While most people would have rushed to find shelter after the chaos earlier, Meru instead noticed Hikaru, Jun, and Eki atop one of the spikes and became convinced that something intriguing must be happening. At that moment, she spots Kazuha and the others carrying Jun away. Even though she has no idea what's going on, she knows there isn't going to be as much drama without Jun around. So she smacks Jun in the face and wakes him up so he can go back to Hikaru. At the same time, on the other side of the city, Aki is leading the White Ravens team to attack Amaryllis. Amaryllis tries using some drones to slow them down. However, Hamada and the others simply push through, boosting Aki up so she can face Amaryllis. Aki engages Amaryllis head-on, initially gaining the upper hand. However, Amaryllis taunts her by bringing up Hikaru's critical injury, causing Aki to falter and lose focus. Seizing the opportunity, Amaryllis knocks Aki to the ground and continues to mock her. Suddenly, a smoke bomb explodes, and Kayano's voice cuts through the chaos, calling out to Aki and revealing that someone has arrived to help her. Aki turns to see Fubuki standing behind her. As the smoke dissipates, the two sisters stand side by side, joined by Sinise and Dex. Together, their combined strength easily overpowers and takes down Amaryllis in a single decisive blow. With Amaryllis defeated, the only task remaining is for Todo to break through the shell. However, before he can act, their worst fears come true. Fist has completed the assimilation and is now fully fused with Ordella. At that exact moment, Hikaru's heart flatlines completely. In a flashback, Hikaru is standing by the window, looking towards the city, from where he hears a call for help. He wonders what that sound is, but decides to ignore it, and tries to go to sleep. He lies down on his bed and, despite trying for some time, is unable to sleep and decides to go out and investigate the sound. As he heads towards his bicycle, he looks at the city and rethinks his decision. After a moment, he puts down his bike, realizing that even if he does go towards the sound, he won't be able to help anyway. At that moment, back in the real world, his heartbeat monitor shows a flat line. Back at the Kagami Group headquarters, alarms blare as the analysts inform Naohito that the target's arbitrium, which is the energy level, has increased drastically. Upon hearing this, Naohito remarks to something ominous, saying it has finally woken up. Suddenly, energy blasts emerge from the arbitrium shell enclosing Fist and destroy the surrounding buildings. The shell breaks up, and Fist, fused with Ordella, emerges from it. Meru, Kazuya, Jun, and the others get trapped in the rubble of one of the destroyed buildings, and Warner breaks down, thinking they are doomed because they can't get out. Meanwhile, Hikaru's friends ask the mecha if they can get them out of there, and Kagemaru says that his ultrasonic waves are having a hard time gathering information from the surrounding space, which further worries them. Kazuya is annoyed at the situation and decides to destroy their surroundings to get out of the rubble. One of Hikaru's friends tries to convince him not to do it because destroying their surroundings might risk a cave-in, hence worsening their situation. But Kazuya argues that there is no other way out. Meru asks Kazuya's mecha what it can do about the situation, but Kazuya thinks that she is talking to him. Meru, mistakenly calling Kazuya an officer, claims that she was talking to his mecha, not him. Kazuya, irritatingly, explains that, first of all, he is not an officer, and, second of all, his mecha can't speak as it is nothing more than a tool. Jun asks Kagemaru if Two's and Kazuya's mechas have some special powers like his ultrasonic waves, and Kagemaru tells him that Two's mecha, Scythe, has ninja skills like him, and she can also sense light, while Kazuya's mecha, Adele, is very intelligent, but he doesn't know what his true power is. Jun asks Kagemaru if releasing Scythe and Adele and working with them will help them get out of here, to which Kagemaru replies that he is sure it will. Jun then orders Two's and Kazuya to release their mechas, so Two's complies immediately and releases Scythe from the chains. As soon as Scythe wakes up, she cries with joy as she is happy that she can finally talk again after 30 years. Kagemaru asks her to keep it together, but Scythe is surprised to see him, thinking that he is a samurai, but Kagemaru explains that he is a ninja just like her. She doesn't recognize him at first, but Kagemaru tells Scythe his name, and Scythe says that she is glad to see that he hasn't changed a bit and still plays as a ninja, which embarrasses Kagemaru. Scythe says that she can sense a lot of light coming from somewhere, but Kazuya is not amused, telling her that just seeing light is no help to them, as they need to find a way out of there. Everyone is now looking at Kazuya to release his mecha, but Kazuya is initially hesitant, saying that his mecha might try to take revenge on him. But Jun orders him to release his mecha, so, having no other choice, Kazuya releases his mecha from the shackles. Adele wakes up and looks angrily at Kazuya. Jun asks Adele if he can find a way out of here, so Adele analyzes the situation and deduces that they are trapped in the collapse of a building and the rubble around them is unstable. He asks them to share any information they have, and Kagemaru and Scythe begin to share useless information, such as the ninjas that inspire them, so Adele accesses their memories to get relevant information. He also reads the minds of Meru and the other high schoolers to get information. After completing his calculation, Adele devises a plan and explains that Kazuya and Two's will turn their backs towards each other, while Scythe will fire an arbitrium jet toward the ground. Meru and the other students will hold Kazuya, while Kagemaru will put up a shield to protect them from the blast. When the jet reaches full power, the students will let go of Kazuya, and as Kazuya and Adele move towards the rubble, they will use their momentum to get through it and create a way out. Kazuya says that, in the end, they will still use force, but Adele tells him not to compare his plan with Kazuya's reckless action. Jun is disappointed as he isn't part of the plan, but Adele tells him that he will lead the operation. He tells him to organize and command everyone and keep the timing perfect, as their entire mission depends on it. He also praises Jun by saying that he deserves this role, as he was the one who decided to free Adele and Scythe. Meanwhile, Tuz asks Scythe if she holds a grudge against her, so Scythe tells her that she doesn't hold a grudge, as she wasn't the one who caught her, and instead praises Tuz's eyelashes. She also asks why everyone is calling her Scythe, as her real name is Ayumi. Meanwhile, Kazuya tells Adele that he has no intention of talking to him, but Adele tells him to focus and explains that they will have plenty of time to talk once they get out of there. Jun tells everyone to get ready as he counts down, and as soon as he reaches 0, Ayumi begins to blast the energy jet as the others hold on to Kazuya. Meanwhile, Adele tells Kazuya that he always used him as a sword, but his real skill was a punch. Saying this, Adele turns into a huge fist. Once Jun notices that the energy jet is at full power, he tells everyone to release Kazuya, so they comply, and Kazuya and Adele fly towards the rubble and break through, releasing everyone from the rubble. As the group emerges, they are surprised to see Fist's shattered Arbitrium sphere, and Jun asks Tuz and Kazuya to take him to see Hikaru. Meru gasps as she again thinks that Jun and Hikaru are in love. As Jun goes over to Hikaru, he is shocked to see him in such a state, as Aki is lying by Hikaru, screaming at him to wake up. Jun walks up to Aki and tells her that they will wake up Hikaru, but he needs Aki to lend him her strength. Jun then goes over to his brother, who asks him what he is doing here. Jun asks him if they can wake up Hikaru with the help of Asclepius. Naohito is surprised, but Jun tells him that, to counter the power of Fist and Amaryllis, Asclepius was created with the power to control the flow of Arbitrium, which was the reason that Jun's illness was cured, and using this ability, they can channel other people's Arbitrium to Hikaru, similar to a blood donation. But Naohito tells him that they can't do that because Asclepius wasn't designed for such use, as reviving a person would require massive amounts of Arbitrium, which Asclepius cannot handle, and it might break down. He also tells him that it is a very special mecha, and they cannot afford to have it destroyed because they can't build it again, and that if it does get destroyed, Jun will get sick again. Jun says that he doesn't care and asks if it can revive Hikaru or not. Naohito tells him it can, and Jun takes Asclepius. Todo asks him to rethink his decision, as without Asclepius, Jun will get sick again. But Naohito says that Jun can handle himself and, besides, he is the only one who can use Asclepius perfectly. He adds that Jun has already entrusted their fate to Hikaru and Alma, and he can no longer stop him. Todo remarks that Naohito dotes on his brother too much. Jun gathers everyone around Hikaru and explains to them that Asclepius is a special mecha that can control the flow of Arbitrium, and tells them that he will use it to supply their Arbitrium to Hikaru. The analysts are skeptical about whether it will even work or not, but Jun is determined and asks everyone to lend him their energy. To his surprise, no one volunteers. They find no point in reviving Hikaru, as they believe he will not be able to help them anyway. Jun shuts them up and tells them that Hikaru had no reason to fight, unlike them, but he still decided to help them and got himself killed. He says that Hikaru may be an idiot and that he wants to punch him, but Hikaru always got up and surpassed him, pushing him to become even stronger. He says Hikaru can't die because he can't get any better without him. Jun declares that he will bring Hikaru back and tells everyone to do their part. Everyone begins to give their energy to Asclepius. Aki also joins in, at which Jun comments that it is an unusual way for her, as she usually punches Hikaru awake. Aki tells him to save it, as right now, she just wants to save her friend. So Jun begins supplying energy to Hikaru. Meanwhile, we see Hikaru in his mind, wondering where he is when he gets grabbed by Jun's arm, but he falls down. When he looks up, he sees the mecha cubes of everyone. Suddenly, he gets punched by Aki's hand and begins to see the memories of everyone giving him energy, including Jun and Aki's memories, where he surprisingly sees Alma. Meanwhile, the people supplying him with energy are getting exhausted, and despite all their Arbitrium, Hikaru's Arbitrium levels are still not changing. In his mind, Hikaru reaches out towards Alma, but instead, he gets grabbed by a key in Jun's arms and begins to get pulled. He cannot run as fast as them and falls again. He begins to talk to himself, saying that, unlike them, he doesn't have a goal or a purpose. He doesn't even know what direction he should be heading in. On the other hand, Adele tells everyone to stick close to each other and crowd up so that the arbitrium density increases. When the people do so, they see a dramatic increase in Hikaru's arbitrium levels, and Quen is shocked to see that Adele's plan is working. Meanwhile, Fist, who is floating in the sky, notices that Alma is no longer a part of him as his entire arm disintegrates. He uses Ordella to create a wing made of arbitrium crystal and rushes towards Hikaru. Inside Hikaru's mind, Hikaru finally gathers some courage and says that despite not having anything, he still wants to help his friends in any way he can. He reaches out and finally sees Alma wrap around his arm as he awakens. Suddenly, there is a huge blast and Fist has attacked Hikaru and the others, capturing Jun in the process. He leaves Yakumo's body and instead takes over Jun's body. This greatly increases his power as he remarks that the body of a person belonging to the Kagami family is a powerful vessel. He says that, with the power of Ordella and the body of Jun, he will make this world a better place for his brethren. He declares that he will get rid of every obstacle, starting with Alma. As the dust settles, Hikaru appears with Alma on his arm, ready to fight Fist. A flashback begins showing a young Tsukihito writing some document while others badmouth him behind his back without realizing he could hear them. Still, he paid no attention to those people, while Fist couldn't comprehend why they hated his partner that much. After all, the Mecha-Ude considered Tsukihito a kind person. Apparently, despite being the oldest son, he had been weak since he was a kid. Moreover, since the family business had expanded thanks to Yakumo, they wanted to make him the heir, which made Tsukihito an obstacle. Nevertheless, he made clear to Fist that he would never hate his little brother. Yakumo had used his talents to help Tsukihito's research to develop the city, which made Tsukihito owe Yakumo a great debt of gratitude. Fist then revealed to Tsukihito that before going to that world, he had left the task of leading their kind to his brother, Alma. However, he was having second thoughts regarding that decision. After hearing that, Tsukihito and Fist made a promise. The former would continue his research on Aldera until he could cure his illness, while the latter should save his people. Then, as fellow big brothers, they should support their little brothers together. Right after, a time skip happens and we see Tsukihito walking toward an unconscious Yakumo. Both of them were surrounded by flames, since the accident while awakening Aldera had just happened. At that moment, Tsukihito removed Fist from him and fused it with Yakumo while telling the Mecha-Ude that he should live on and keep their promise. Back to the present, Fist faced Hikaru, who had just awoken and was ready to fight. Our protagonist looked at all the people present and, after smiling at them, he told Alma that they would get Kagami back. Right after, Hikaru attacked Fist, who easily blocked the punch. Then, Alma told our protagonist that they would have to forcefully break Fist and Kagami's demise. Nevertheless, the next moment, Fist used his power to make a huge structure appear from beneath the water. The tower that appeared was taller than the nearby bridge, which surprised Hikaru. Fist then said that as long as he had that body and the arbitrium amplifier, he could expand the power of Aldera throughout the world. In fact, his plan still was to take control of all humans and make his brethren evolve in that new world. Of course, neither Alma nor Hikaru was willing to let Fist do that, so their battle resumed with no one being able to take the upper hand. It was an intense fight that went from mid-air to beneath the water and then back to mid-air. Nevertheless, at that moment, Kagami managed to regain control of his body, and Hikaru took advantage of that to land a clean hit. But Fist quickly regained control and counterattacked, hitting our protagonist hard. It was then that Fist revealed to Alma that Yakumo and Tsukihito's deaths were not an accident. Another flashback begins showing an injured Yakumo overhearing a conversation between those who had badmouthed Tsukihito previously. They were saying that a little bit of tampering with their research records about Aldera could cause a spectacular meltdown. Back to the present. Fist said that the masterminds of that accident had been humans blinded by envy and ambition. Obviously, that pissed off Alma greatly, and Fist tried to take advantage of that rage to make his brother support him. However, Hikaru decided to step in and said that despite how foolish and full of flaws humans were, they kept moving forward, and that included both Yakumo and Tsukihito. On the other hand, Fist was just unwilling to accept reality and preferred to remain caught in the past. That made Fist mad, and he replied that he would keep his promise, and since humans were just creatures that hurt their fellow kind, a nature that couldn't be overcome, he would take control of them to create an ideal world. In the end, Alma couldn't decide which side was wrong, but since he knew that both Yakumo and Tsukihito wouldn't have wanted to see what Fist was doing, the Mecha-Ude decided to support our protagonist, and the battle resumed again. Nevertheless, during the fight, Kagami managed to once again seize control of his body and helped our protagonist so he could hit Fist with ease for a short while. Hikaru and Fist kept exchanging blows for a while, and both sides took considerable damage, which led to another pause. Then, Fist told our protagonist Tsukihito's circumstances and began to ask him why he had to die despite having the will to face all those issues with optimism. That pissed Fist a lot, to the point of giving him the strength to keep fighting against Hikaru. Fist began to hit our protagonist, while asking Alma why he stood in his way and protected the humans despite their cruel nature. It was then that Fist managed to land a clean hit on our protagonist, sending him away. Nevertheless, Hikaru stood up while asking Fist why he was trying to control and be by the side of those humans that he hated. That question made Alma realize something, and he told Fist that although he hated humans, he loved Tsukihito, who happened to be a human. Alma then told his brother that he knew that that contradiction had tormented Fist, and those words really triggered Fist, who immediately told Alma to shut up before charging his energy for a huge attack. Right after, Hikaru told Alma that he couldn't ignore Fist and that he wanted to save him, which earned Alma's gratitude and confirmed to the Mecha-Ude that our protagonist truly had a kind heart. Immediately thereafter, both of them launched a devastating attack, causing a huge explosion. Then we saw Fist Cube form falling to the bottom of the river, while thinking that he had known all along that Tsukihito would have never wanted what he was trying to do. Right after, Alma appeared and grabbed the cube form of his big brother. Sometime later, a young boy was getting punched by Honor while saying that they were hetero crown and that they had been using Mecha-Ude better than both ARMS or the Kagami Group for a long time, which meant that they were their seniors. That pissed Kagemaru, who grabbed him while showing him a bracelet that was a modified shackle from the Aldera wreckage, which was called Alterna. That dangerous thing could have adverse effects on both Mecha-Ude and humans, and Kagemaru was mad because the young boy was spreading that device. However, the young boy didn't care about it and simply said that the world was a survival of the fittest, which earned him a kick from Oniner, who replied that he agreed with those words before adding that to him. The young boy was also the weak. However, when Honor was having fun torturing the young boy, Kagemaru hit him while asking him where was his heart of justice to help the weak and defeat evil. Of course, the young boy tried to use their quarrel as an opportunity to escape, but Twos quickly stopped him with a warning shot. Obviously, the female sniper didn't waste the chance to scold Onair and Kagemaru for playing around. Afterward, Sights asked her to go to karaoke after they finished their mission, which surprised the female sniper to the point of making her blush, especially since she used her real name when calling her. In fact, Twos quickly asked the Mecha-Ude to use a pseudonym when they were on a mission, while Onur teased her saying that the embarrassing Twos was the best. Twos then said that if they didn't finish that quickly, they were going to be late for their departure. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Kazuha complained about being assigned to take care of some small fries, and Adele replied that it couldn't be helped since he hadn't still gotten used to the new system, before adding that if Kazuha had followed the Mecha-Ude's instructions, they would have cleaned up that mess a lot quicker, which the young guy didn't like. Shortly after, Imada arrived riding Joe in his bike form, asking them to let them take them. In the meantime, Quen was going somewhere with his co-workers while complaining because he couldn't locate Eki and they were about to be separated. However, he was told that Eki would be okay since her little sister would be with her. Afterward, Tanny asked him if Carex could be fixed if Quen went to the Mecha-Ude world, to which the other replied by confirming it while bragging about his skills, before adding that Adele had told him a lot about the core repair technology in that world. Meanwhile, in a dark alley, Aki asked a young man she she had captured if knew about the worm model Mecha-Ude. After all, he was using one that resembled Amaryllis, like the young men captured by Onur and Tuz and Kazuha. Nevertheless, the young man replied that he knew nothing. Shortly after, Fubuki arrived, and after noticing the Mecha-Ude of the young boy, she told her sister that they had to go. Unfortunately, as usual, Cinnes and Dex began to quarrel about where to go. Luckily, Tado arrived at that moment and asked them to leave the rest to him. Later, at Kagami Group's headquarters, a young woman was saying that Hetero Crown, the criminal organization that used Mecha-Ude, had been growing rapidly. Jun then added that those who had been hiding were starting to emerge to take advantage of the chaos, before saying that they were not going to let them have their way. The Kagami Group had been using Mecha-Ude as tools for far too long, and even though Fist and Amaryllis had been the ones pulling the strings, they were still at fault for letting that happen. Thus, from that moment onward, carrying the spirit of Yakumo and Tsukihito, they would find a way for Mecha-Ude and humans to coexist and work together as the new Kagami Group. Immediately thereafter, Jun said that, as the new Kagami Group's special director of Mecha-Ude restoration, he demanded President Naohito's dismissal because that would facilitate communications. Back with Quen, his group had arrived at the base and he was still crying over Iki's absence. But almost immediately, she arrived with her sister and Jun. Shortly after, Hikaru arrived with Alma, and Iki reprimanded him for being late. Afterward, a portal was opened and Alma told Hikaru that that was really goodbye. However, they then began to have a little quarrel that pissed Jun off. Lastly, Hikaru gave Alma the cube form of Fist, who seemed to remain unable to awaken, and bid his partner farewell. Some time later, Hikaru was sitting on a subway railcar when he saw a woman carrying a baby, and on that occasion, he immediately offered her his seat. Watch this next video on screen and subscribe to not miss next part.